All right, if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Lou Wold, he's our police chaplain, one of. He's going to come up and open us in a little prayer.
Just ask you to pray with me. Almighty God, we thank you for the many blessings in our lives. We thank you for our freedoms and our liberty. We thank you for all that you have done in our city and what you're going to do. Help us to bring honor to you in all we say and do. We ask for the riches of your provision to rest upon our city, our elected officials, the city employees, the volunteers, and every business and every family in our city. We take time to ask you to be with the families and cities that have recently lost police officers. Father, for those in Dallas, for those in Barron County, Michigan, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Kansas City, and Father, many others who have lost loved ones. Father, whether in police service or fire or military, we ask you to give them comfort and peace. We ask for your hand to be upon our police, our fire, and those serving in the military. We ask you to protect them on and off duty, to give them wisdom in every situation, to bring them home safely and keep their families safe. We ask for your wisdom and protection on them every day. And Father, we ask for our mayor and for this council and the agenda that's before them. We ask you to grant them wisdom to govern, the ability to hear and be heard, a sense of welfare and the needs of our people. We ask you to give them confidence in doing the good and fitting things, the ability to work in harmony, even in the midst of honest disagreement. We ask for personal peace in their lives and families and joy in their tasks. We thank you for their willingness to serve. Help us each day to do and say as we would want others to do and say unto us, and give us an assurance of what would please you and would benefit those who live and work in our city. And Father, we ask you to help Lockport to be a shining light on a hill. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Lou. All right. Before we get rolling, there's a couple of gentlemen from the American Legion wanted to come up and say a few words. Fellas?
Good evening. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to address this meeting tonight. My name is Michael Bachman. I am the chaplain for the American Legion post here in town. I am also the commander for the Sons of the American Legion, 11th District. With me is Phil Benalis, a member of our squadron here in town, but also the commander for the entire 2nd Division of the state of Illinois. Phil and I have had the honor the past few years to be the chairman for the bingo for Canal Days. And we just wanted to give you a brief report on how everything went this year. And in a word, that would be outstanding. We were anticipating, being set up for maybe 35, 40 people. Jody, in her vast wisdom, said, well, let's set up for a few more than that. So we were prepared for 80. We were overflowing at times. By far and large, this is the most successful bingo that we have seen yet. And this year, our charity of choice is Homes for Our Troops, which I won't bore you with a big description of them. You can find them on the internet. They are a group that the Post here in town has worked very, very closely with this past year for one of our local veterans, Captain Anthony Simone, who was severely injured while on duty and needed basically a special needs home. And with a lot of help and support with the Homes for Our Troops, we were able to provide that. And we just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity and For any questions, we just want to end with, see you next year.
All right. It was our pleasure. Thank you for being part of our Oak Canal Days, fellas.
Yep, thanks
Thank
for
you.
being a
Thank
part.
you.
Thanks. All right. Liaison reports. Anybody have anything they want to talk about?
We didn't do a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't even do roll
That's
call.
okay.
All right, lay it on us.
Alderman Petracos.
Here.
Alderman Capadona.
Here.
Alderman Gilvogli.
Here.
Alderman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Deskin.
Here.
Alderman Vandermeer.
Here.
Alderman Peretta.
Here.
Alderwoman Bartleson.
Here.
8 present.
So it looked like nobody had anything for today?
Real quick, just to remind everyone, the mayor's having a town hall meeting here the 27th at 7 PM.
Yeah, 1 week from today. All right. I wanted to mention something. We had a TCC meeting. That's the group that's really been put together, trying to talk about alleviating our chronic bridge traffic, and that's by building another bridge. The Caton Farm Bruce Road Bridge has been, talked about for many years. It's gone through many, committees and such, and a lot of planning. One of the points of contention, though, that has kind of held things up is obviously the cost, but also this, what's called the middle alignment, which is how the road connects back to 159th Street after it comes over the river and snakes its way back up. This council currently here has been not in favor of the middle alignment. We seem takes up prime real estate. It also adds a lot of money to the project that we think is unnecessary, building an entirely new road. We've been working with the TCC and the county trying to get them to connect to I-55 instead, which would give us another intersection south of the city, 355, sorry, and it would also, places for economic development, shave a lot of money off the project, maybe bring it closer to actually getting it done. We actually had a meeting with the FHWA and IDOT, and they're open to it. They, in the past, that they wouldn't be, but when we actually sat down, had the conversation, they seemed to be in agreement that it's a good idea. There'll need to be a study done, which we think is appropriate, but I think that's good news. I think it brings this project, which is, just always being talked about, a little bit closer to reality. So thanks for the hard work, staff and members of council who go to the TCC meeting and have been involved in that. So a good step forward. All right. Ben, you want to talk something about IDOT streetscape?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. We also had met with IDOT officials last week in regards to the downtown streetscape plan. And it's still progressing forward with bid letting in 2017. There was some questions raised by the council the last time we presented this with our last letter of intent with IDOT. We've been going back and forth with agreements with them. And the question was, would they coordinate the construction in their project? We were going to hire outside consultants and contractors to come in and do the brickwork, basically, for the streetscape plan. And IDOT actually preferred the other avenue, in which IDOT would use their contractors to do our streetscape work. So we would still have V3's design. V3 would still be contracted by us to do construction documents, and IDOT would do the oversight and coordination with those contractors. They plan to charge us 10%, but that is not necessarily an uncommon amount. We would have hired someone to do additional oversight and coordination with those contractors anyway. Probably V3 would have maybe got a little bit bigger contract than they are. So overall, we're looking forward to still receiving some reductions in the sidewalks that they were going to put in for cement that haven't been finalized yet. And also in this process, I believe they're going to cover the cost for the lighting, which was not previously approved, to the tune, we'll save about another $100,000 to $150,000. So I think the net change of the dollars will be minimal to the city, the impact, but they will be coordinating the work along with the coordination of our water main replacement as well. So that was good news. We've continued to pressure them to try to move the project up. It's let for June of 2017. We've tried to get them to do it in May or March. Obviously, with the budget shortfalls and all the slow progress at the state and IDOT, they were not optimistic about us getting it moved up. They still felt optimistic by the fall that they would be able to embark on the project. And but I guess the hidden news in there means if they start in late 2017, they will not be done in 2017. So there's a potential where it'll roll over to 2018 in the disruption of the downtown. So we're still going to be communicating with them and trying to evaluate what we can. We might be able to do some minor work and coordination with NICOR to get some of these buildings prepared so that it'll go smoother by the time, just like we did with the vaults. But it was a very good meeting. I have to put praise out there to IDOT. That's not something that is said often, but they've been good to work with on this project.
And I think the question Ben and I had when we were talking about this news was that, you know, do we encourage starting it in the fall, working through the winter, finishing it at the end of 2018? Or do we, you know, see if, hey, look, can we just start at the first clear day of 2018, if that's the case, and try to get it all done? My fear has always been that it's going to take more than a construction season, so maybe the extra few months starting in September 2017 is a good thing, but this is what we've been talking about. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. This is the first time I've heard
I think,
it.
caveat when it comes to potentially waiting to trying to do it in the spring of 2018 means we would go out for bid letting in the fall or winter, and you'll get much better pricing guarantees than you will in June of 2017. So there's a potential for some cost savings. That's one theory. The impact to the downtown in one season, so if you can coordinate it all and start early spring and be done by fall, that's a great thing, but there's no guarantees. So even if you wait till spring of 2018, it could roll over to 2019. So that's why Steve and I had bantered about, we're not sure. And it'll probably be a final IDOT decision. We can request our preferences, but at the end of the day, they'll be letting us know when they embark.
I guess my question would be, do we still have an open dialogue with them, even though IDOT's involved? Would we
Yeah.
still be a little bit involved? And
Yeah, we're going to be bringing back another letter of intent. They would like to probably have us sign a contract in September this year in regards to what the process forward will be. I think we had a lot of questions still for them. They had questions of us. We had a great meeting. And so I'm waiting for the meeting notes and the response, formal response in writing from IDOT in regards to the counter offer to change. So, yeah, we'll be bringing back some more documents for you to approve.
I guess my only concern with starting in September would be, you know, how much would be ripped up over the winter when no work would be done, and would it prolong a negative impact upon the
And
businesses?
don't forget our coordination of water mains, and I don't, know about what parts would be done when. So, yeah, those are all things to still kind of dialogue with them to maybe come to a consensus together that maybe it's better to wait till 2018. So that launch point would still be their the same fiscal. They have a July fiscal. So as long as we start in, the bid letting is in June, and then the expenses are in their fiscal, they don't.
The typical rules of thumb are try to get it done in one season, get it done, bid early as much as you can for the next year or any of that stuff. But the only con that I'm hearing about the 2018 is we're going to be 6 months later in bidding, which is not a bad thing. So if we can bid in November, December, January, February, get some great prices and hit the ground running for that summer and impact people the least, impact downtown the least, I think that's probably a better way to go. You can probably save some money in construction dollars and have the least impact there. Because if we get a horrible winter in 2017, that means a lot of that construction's sitting open during that winter, and it's just a little bit more hazardous and everything. So if they can get a good start, and then by end of 2018, if it's just little odds and ends that they have to finish up, that's better than having one side of the street open. So I'm fine with 2018 construction.
Okay.
I just want to say the only negative about that is when you put something off to 2018 and all of a sudden the bids come in over estimate, then they're not going to award it that way, and they're going to back it up. So, I mean, everything could get delayed. You're hoping you get great numbers. If you don't, if people, sometimes the estimate on these projects is not what they think. So, got to be careful. Sometimes you want to get the job out there and out for bid as soon as possible. So, got to take the good with the bad, I guess.
What would be the earliest they can get it out to bid?
I believe it would be June, July of 2017.
Probably the worst
It's
time.
still late, you still won't get awarded for
Correct.
like almost 2 months. I mean, they're not fast on giving awards either. So,
So Ben, if we start in the spring, is there a guarantee it'll be done prior to the winter?
Never a guarantee, no. I mean, that's the goal.
It's a state.
That's the rub,
That's
yeah.
that's the construction.
That's for all of us to push and Ben to work with them, coordinate a schedule and say, and have, Amy or a representative from the city being at these meetings and seeing if they're on schedule so they can report back to us in the community.
Is it better to have a little bit of a winter during the end of the project, or is it better to have a little bit of a winter in the beginning of the project? So, don't know.
Right, that's the discussion. Just so everybody knows what we're talking about, we've been working on ripping up State Street between 8th and 10th for some time now. IDOT wanted to come in and get rid of our on-street parking. We kind of pushed back on that as something we need, and by the time we got done deliberating, they agreed to fix a lot of the infrastructure problems that are in their right-of-way, which meant we had an opportunity to rip the entire street out, replace water mains that have been problematic for 50 years. We're still going to be able to retain our on-street parking, and we're going to be able to get turn lanes as well. There'll be a lot of great improvements for it. It's a big project. So obviously we want to make sure we're working to take care of the downtown business owners and making it as least disruptive as possible. But it's always painful when you do this kind of project. We've seen them in Plainfield, Downers Grove. When they go on, they're very painful, but when they're done, they look great. So that's what we're talking about.
With that, if we could, what I'd like to request is that we have FD1 moved up on the agenda before we get to CA2. That would be a presentation from Sikich on our audit. They're just going to give us a brief update on where we are financially.
Yeah, sure, I don't have a problem.
Great. Thank you, Ben. My name's Jim Savio. I'm a partner with Sikich. I'm the partner on the city's audit. I want to first off thank you for inviting me here tonight to present the comprehensive annual financial report for December 31st, 2015. I also want to thank Ben, Lisa, Maggie, Amanda, and the entire staff for all their assistance during the entire audit process. Went very well again this year. They were able to provide us with all the information we requested and were able to answer all our questions. I'll point out just a couple highlights in the comprehensive annual financial report. Touch a little bit on the auditor's communication to the members of the city council and management, and then after that I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council might have. I'd like to start on page 1 of the comprehensive annual financial report. And pages 1 and 2 is the independent auditor's report. These are the only 2 pages that we as auditors are responsible for. Management's responsible for the rest of the comprehensive annual financial report. And those responsibilities are described here on page 1. Turning over to page 2, up at the very top is the opinion unit. Once again, we issued an unmodified opinion this year, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide to the city. Turning over a couple pages to MD&A, page 1. This is management's discussion and analysis. This was prepared by Lisa and provides a great overview of the city's financial position and the changes in financial position for the year. It also describes any significant changes that may have occurred during the year, and also has some comparative data that you can't find elsewhere in the report. I say this every year when I come out here, but if you only want to read one thing in the comprehensive annual financial report, to read the MD&A, because it, like I said, presents a really good overview of the city's finances in more of a layman's terms. So I'm not going to get into the detail of the numbers, but I'd be happy to answer any questions on the comprehensive annual financial report. Turning over to the communication to members of city council and management. At the table of contents, there's some required communication that we have to have with city council. After that, we list out adjusting journal entries. These are entries that we find as part of the audit process, and we're required to communicate those to the city council. Just want to point out, we just had one audit adjustment during the year, which is a great reflection on the finance department to have only one audit adjustment. We also list out what we call past adjusting journal entries. You did not have any this year, but those are entries that we make that we don't make because they're deemed to be immaterial. So everything that should have been booked that we found was booked as part of the audit. Turning over to page 7. is the communication of deficiencies and internal control and other comments to management. Just want to point out, page 7, we had no current year comments. All the comments were carry forwards from the prior year, and those can be found on page 11. And we had 2 significant deficiencies, one from the prior year. One was implemented here, and the other is in the process of being implemented, compensated absences. That is in the process right now. And turning over to page 12, we had a deficiency from the prior year that's also in the process of being addressed. And finally, one other comment is what we communicate every year, but the bill-to-pump ratio for water. And you can see this year, compared to the short year, December 31st, 2014, bill-to-pump was again about 70%. So you'd like, you know, best case scenario, that'd be a little bit higher, at least in the 80% range. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Question on the bill-to-pump ratio. This is pretty interesting. What is what's a best-in-class? You know, what is this measurement relative to other?
Well,
municipalities?
I mean, best case would be 90% or above, but with, you know, older communities with a lot of older infrastructure, I think that's probably not a realistic goal. So probably, you know, closer to 80% would probably be a better range. But like I said, with really older communities with a lot of older water mains, sometimes that's even hard to achieve.
This is something that's going to get addressed here shortly. There's a water audit that's going on. We were in contact with Chris Allen from Strand, and he was telling me that there's some things that we can do internally to help with that. So city facilities aren't being metered for the water that we use, including the treatment plants. So it's using a lot of water that is not being added to the build. So we're going to start billing the city. And I asked him if we could start that so we can budget for it for 2017. So that's going to help this number out tremendously as we're moving forward for all those things like fire hydrant use that doesn't get metered and doesn't get billed out. So it's kind of inflating some revenues and some expenses out there, but it's a way to address that we're really showing what's being billed.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. Anybody else? All right.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Thanks. All right, next thing I want to move down to kind of what I think everybody's here for tonight. I know that there's some concern about the RV ordinance, so I want to explain a little bit about what this is and what this is not. About a year ago, this council unanimously decided to start enforcing some of our codes for beautification. We've oftentimes struggled with the fact that Lockport has tall grass and buildings that are not kept up, buildings that are abandoned, and so we needed to start tightening this up for just beautification, for livability, just to attract business and retail, especially where our corridors are and people see these things. So we decided to do that. We've taken time to look at these, you know, how we wanted to approach it, and we certainly didn't want to rush into things because these are codes and stuff that necessarily haven't been enforced in the past. Mainly they pertain to, like I said, buildings, structures, grass. When it came to this RV code, it was also in that mix. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know it existed until 2 guys came here a few weeks ago. One of the reasons why the RV code even came up was because someone used the code to remove a vehicle that was in violation. The person seemed to get upset about the fact that they were called out and made a comment that, like, look, if I'm going to get called out, everybody in the neighborhood should get called out. So therefore, our code enforcement officer can't argue with that, and so he issued, you know, violations for other people who came out here and shared their concern. This is when the RV code came up, and we as a council talked about it a little bit, and Alderman Deskin felt like it was not the right code. The rest of us are like, look, it's been on the books since 1998. This isn't a new law. This isn't something we just wrote. This is just something that we all decided at that time when it came up. It's like, look, if it's going to be on the code, we're going to enforce it. And we looked at it. It's not that we disagreed with it. Most communities around the nation have these kinds of codes because they're about community. They're less about like economic development and these kinds of things, such as the grass cutting and these kinds of other ordinances that we're enforcing. They're really about courtesy to neighbors. They're not about cluttering up neighborhoods with, recreational vehicles. People who have these vehicles are very proud of them. They spend a lot of money on them, and I respect that. But do we store them in our driveways? That's really what these questions come to. So this was something that was first brought to the council in 1998. It's had a few revisions over the years. The last one was in 2008, I believe. Every time it's been revised and looked at by the council, it's been tightened up and made a little stronger. I think right now it's pretty much middle of the road of the communities I've seen around it. So I just wanted to give an explanation here about what this is. This isn't something that was new that we all wrote. This isn't something that we did because we thought, oh, let's get a revenue generator. It was just part of the overall codes of beautification and cleaning things up, and it was in that mix. Now, I understand there's concerns about how it affects people and if it's appropriate or not. I'm certainly here to listen. We're all here to listen respectfully. So I have a number of cards for folks. The way our cards work when we do public speaking is that we have 5 minutes. A person can come up and speak for 5 minutes. We have a number of people here, so I want to stick to that time frame. And then afterwards, we listen. We're going to go up here to the council. We'll all hear our thoughts. I'm not here for cross debate. I want to listen to everybody's voices individually here. If we have to talk again after that, we'll go back through the row. So first person I have here is Mr. Justice. Why don't you come on up and speak? Robert, if you could just state your name and, if you want, where you live.
Robert Jostes, Jostes, 724 Reef Road, Lockport. All set?
Yep.
First of all, I'd like to thank those who responded to my email. I really did appreciate the call back, or even the people that stopped over at my house. I really did appreciate that. I'm here tonight to speak to you about an ordinance which in part deals with recreational vehicles parked in a residential district. In my opinion, this ordinance, which appears to have been passed in what I thought was 1979 according to the printout, is out of date with current products offered by the recreational industry. The size and length of the restrictions and regulations contained in this ordinance conflict with what is allowed under the Illinois rules of the road. I am interested in keeping my property clean and neat and have invested a considerable amount of money to park and store my trailer in a safe area on my property since 1978. I have tried very hard to be considerate of my neighbors. I am here to ask for your consideration in halting this aggressive enforcement, and it's a sheet, of this outdated ordinance. I am also here to offer a solution to the problem. I am willing to serve on a citizen committee with you, staff, to update the current ordinance. As a recreational vehicle owner and a retired Lockport Administrative Police Lieutenant, I believe I can relate to both citizen and city concerns. Please take me up on my offer. Thank you. Any questions?
I guess just real quick, Robert, if I understand your concern is you feel like these RVs are made larger today, and so you feel like the restrictions that these needs to be expanded to allow larger campers?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
They are much larger. I have a brochure from my trailer, which is from the Jayco, and I can show you what trailers, regular travel trailers are and what fifth wheels are. And that's what I really was getting at with this particular willingness to serve on a committee, is to let you know what the difference is. I really don't think most of you know what the difference is. And I think once you were enlightened.
The difference between a smaller camper and a larger camper, or a difference between a fifth wheel?
A travel trailer, a fifth wheel, and a motor home. There's a big difference in the way they're constructed, which means there's a big difference in height.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thanks, Robert, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, next card I got is Susan. Want to come up, Stitch?
Hello, thank you. My name's Susan Steck, S-T-E-C-H. I live on 707 Reef Road. I have an RV. I guess I've lived on this street since 1988 and previously on Shoals since about 1983, have always had a travel trailer, some kind of a trailer, a pop-up, a little larger. As your family grows, you want something nicer and better. And I found it, I was infuriated that this all of a sudden, I don't care if it's been on the books, it hasn't been enforced. People have purchased homes. I went door to door and talked to people. I literally knocked on doors in 3 neighborhoods by me to get input as to what they thought. You know, this was, they've purchased homes, they have nice campers, they have nice boats, they pay a lot of money in taxes, they told me. And, you know, I can't disagree with them. You've got a 3-car garage with a nice concrete drive. There isn't any reason, if it's legally licensed, insured, why it shouldn't sit there. I just, it floors me. I started going around Lockport today. If I would have had more time, I would have gone door to door and see what everybody else sees too. Because I got all kinds of things on Facebook. Boy, I tell you, you couldn't pay me enough to be in your shoes for politics. Because you get all kinds of different sides of the picture. I just know that these people have families, they have children. We have chosen to do this in our spare time. I don't take a trip. I go camping. I spend it with my friends. I spend it with other people's families. It's $1 billion business. I just think that it needs to be rewritten and made more in tune with what somebody has involved in it. I understand that somebody doesn't want to look at something that's got weeds growing around it, it's got flat tires, it's not moved. You know, I understand that. I've seen a couple of those. But you're going to crucify the rest of us for the ones you're trying to weed out. There has to be something come together to figure this all out. Again, I would be more than happy to help sit and try and figure this out. I know how tall my trailer is. My trailer's too tall. When I went to Rick's RV today, he says it's a $10 billion business, industry. Most people these days don't start with a pop-up. They might start with a 30-foot trailer that is well over 9 feet. You can't get 9 feet anything except for a pop-up maybe, and those usually are down. It's like the guidelines just need, I think, to be rewritten, and everybody needs to work together to try and fit everybody's, wants and needs together. I know there's needs on one side that don't want to look at it. I understand that too. But if I wanted to live in an HOA, I would have chose to live in an HOA. I don't. I stayed in Lockport because I love Lockport. I was born and raised here, went to the schools, raised my family. I moved a block and a half away from where I had a house because I loved Lockport. It wasn't telling you what on your front door, what you can, there's gotta be rules, I know, but I don't wanna live in an HOA and I don't want my city council to tell me that either. So, I'm very emotional about this. I've lost sleep over it. I feel for families, because some of them take their campers, they put their kids in it, they go to soccer games, they travel around. They've got $40,000 invested in a camper, and you're gonna tell me go put it somewhere else? Well, guess what? I'd rather move. And you better believe I wouldn't tell anybody else to live here then either. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, thank you, Susan. All right, James Hardick?
Thank you for the opportunity to address the council. I've lived in Lockport for 11 years. I've had an RV in my driveway the entire time. I've reviewed with my neighbors. There's no issues. I pay taxes. This shouldn't be an issue. The code basically says that if you live in a residential area, you know, I guess we have to determine what a residential area is. I live at 570 East 13th Street. Directly across the street from me is Sizzle's Restaurant. It's frustrating having the lights shine in my backyard all night long from their spotlights that are there to protect their business. Frustrating, but I don't say anything, I don't complain, it's not my, I'm okay with it. The statute, when I read it, included passenger vehicles exceeding a 12-person capacity and buses or any other kind of trailer or motor vehicle shall not exceed 9 feet in height. So, my question is the city of Lockport planning on moving their bus terminal at the corner of Division and Farrell? Can anybody answer me that?
I'm not responsible for the school district. They're their own taxing body.
Okay, so you're gonna start finding them to move their buses?
Could certainly
Police chief?
ask the question. So,
You can't, they're a state entity.
And they're not residential.
yeah, it's not a residential piece of property is the thing.
And you're saying mine is directly across the street from a business?
You live on a residential lot, so yes. I live directly on 9th Street. It's very busy with traffic. I can complain about it, but I bought my house there. If you buy your house.
I bought my
across
house
from a
there too.
business-
When the last RV I had in my driveway that unfortunately was a total loss, when I chose to replace it, one of the reasons I chose to replace it is due to the fact that I was not aware of a rule on the books.
Sure.
I paid $40,000 for a Class A RV.
James, I completely understand that you didn't know. I'm not
pretty
saying that
frustrated.
people are, there's one or two reasons people are parking their RVs. Either they didn't know about the ordinance, which is understandable, or two, they've been parking it, they knew about it, but nobody's ever said anything, so it's just kind of like, I don't think anybody cares. So those are probably the two reasons why people park.
I'm a claims adjuster for Progressive Insurance. I specialize in boats, motorcycles, and RVs. The RV industry is up 70% in the last year. Progressive's business is up 70% in the last year for RVs. I drive to people's houses all day long looking at their RVs, so you can't tell me that every village and every city in the area has this RV law on the books. I called the storage facility to check to see what the cost of storing my RV is. At least $1,500 a year. Would I be willing to pay the city of Lockport $100, $200 for an RV tag to park it in my driveway? Yes. That's all I have to say. And you could ticket me, and I'll see you in court.
All right, thank you, James. All right, Charles, I think?
My name is Charles Morrow. I live at 1318 Collingwood. Sound like a broken record, it's the same thing everybody's talking about, so I won't go on and on. We've had our trailer on a slab to the back, side of the house, going on 10, 11 years, never an issue. I know what you're saying about the ordinance. I guess what gets me was, frustrating is I am well within all the qualifications to be good there, except for an air conditioner box as big as this podium puts me 4 inches over my height. And because of that, I'm gonna have to move it, pay some place to store it, and, you wanna up and go somewhere with the kids, and it's like, well, hold on, gotta make sure the place is open, I gotta go get the camper, I'm gonna have to bring it home, I'm gonna have to back it in, load it up, as opposed to, it's right there, you hitch it up, off you go. So that's just the main reason I'm here. So, like I said, I'll be brief, and thanks for hearing me out.
Okay, all right, thanks, Charles. All right, Brian?
Good evening. Brian Belanda, B-U-L-A-N-D-A. I live at 901 Glenmore, Abbey Glen. I moved to Lockport 11 years ago. I permitted to have my driveway added alongside the house to park my RV back in 2005. At that time, there was no talk of the ordinance. It was no problem putting it there. I put considerable expense to pour the concrete slab. It is behind the house, out of the public eye. And The only problem I had when I spoke with code enforcement was my height.
Was the what? I'm
The
sorry.
height.
Height, okay.
It's legal with the exception of the height in the ordinance. So I'm asking if we could change the height restrictions or up it. Newer motorhomes now are getting bigger, as stated earlier.
Sure.
I purchased a vehicle sticker for it. It is a Class A in Lockport. My wife and I are concerned if we park it off-site, vandalism, insurance cost, the cost itself of having it off-site. So I'm asking to just take a look at the ordinance again with reference to the height.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir, could I just ask you a question? Did you say that your trailer is actually behind a fence of a privacy fence?
It's not behind a fence. I could add a fence. It would still be behind the property that would block it.
So you're far enough back at the majority of the back of your home where if you did put a privacy fence, it would be hidden?
But it's not the fence. It sounds like you're in compliance except for height.
Yes.
Okay.
You would still see it over the fence unless I put a 10-foot fence up, but
Yeah, I don't think, it's not a matter of a fence, compliance except for that. Okay, I understand.
I understand the ordinance that, people parking them in the driveway and so forth and so on, but I think if it was out of the public eye, back behind, it's still on my property, I think more people would maybe be more comfortable with that. I don't know if everybody can do that on their property, but
Sir, how far, height difference, what's your height difference that you're over?
I'm about 12 feet.
So what is that over our ordinance? 3.
About 3 feet.
Oh, so it's not like a 4 inches, okay.
But it's, okay, well, it's interesting to me. Okay, I get it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. All right, Senior Kuhn.
Yes, Art Kuhn, 535 East 10th Street, born and raised in this town. I'll give you a little history. I'm here for history night, okay? I've had some history with this village. Where do I start? Your ordinance that was passed out, it was kind of ironic. I brought my motorhome home Saturday night. It's been in storage. I bring it home Saturday night. Monday morning, I got this hanging in my door. And anyway, I served on the city council for 4 years, back in the early 90s. I served with Mr. Smith over here at the tail end of it. Prior to that, with the auxiliary police for 4 years, and then after my failure to become mayor of this great city, in my failed attempt, I ended up on the zoning board of appeals for about 5 or 6 years. I've got a lot of background in retrospect with what took place with zoning and how all this transpired, okay? I ran a business in downtown Lockport for 22 years, and I was in the middle of all this when this was getting adopted, okay? And it was a knee-jerk reaction to a situation that was going on in this city, because if anybody knows the Kegwin farm out here, east of town, which is now Broken Arrow, Vince Solano comes to the city of Lockport, sells us a bill of goods, but we don't have any zoning that could take care of, we didn't have the ordinances, the building codes, the whatevers to do what we needed to do out there. We didn't have the sewer, we didn't have the water, we didn't have the money. And Vince says, hey, I'll annex to Joliet. Oh, wait a minute, we got to work this out. Not me, now this is prior to me getting on. Don't blame me for this, okay? So anyway, so that's what happened. So they go to Buffalo Grove and they pay the village up there 15 grand so that they can take their ordinance books like this and they scratch out Buffalo Grove and they print in the city of Lockport. Well, that's like taking a child's toy and you got round holes with square pegs and trying to stick them together. And guess what? It doesn't work. It's not too bad for the new developments, but it was an atrocity here in the RO district, the old sections of town, the original sections of town, it didn't work, and it still doesn't work today, okay? So those are problems, okay? This ordinance came about through that. And again, we're no Buffalo Grove. If these people wanted to live in Buffalo Grove, they'd move, but we don't want to be in Buffalo Grove. I'm 6 generations here. My grandkids, 8 generations in this town. That takes us way back, okay? We want to live in Lockport. We love Lockport. I dedicated a lot of time to this place, more than I guess I was insane. I don't know. But that's another story. But anyway, I would hope that the council could look at this particular ordinance and others and look at the Pandora's box that you're going to open up here, okay? This thing can be amended, okay? This is 2016, okay? Not 1990, okay? It's not Buffalo Grove. We need to look at this and rewrite it before we go out and get rid of, basically, you're going to get rid of about 95% of the recreational stuff in this town. And if that's what you want to do, you got the ordinance to do it, okay? If that's what you want. But you're going to get rid of basically about every boat, every motorhome, every pull trailer, whatever's out there recreational-wise, it's going to go. All right? I don't know. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes up here and have to deal with that. Okay? I really think there's got to be a happy medium to all this. I don't think it should be a knee-jerk reaction to, okay, we had a problem here this summer with a neighbor and another guy, and the other guy got screwed. Okay, I can understand that. I've been there. Okay? I've been through all this. Okay? Monday morning, I got this, I was to the police station. Wham, bam. First off, I thought it was selective enforcement. I can't stand selective enforcement, but that's where these codes are going to go into, okay? We're going to go around, ding some people, whatever takes place, and then, I don't know, is it all going to go away? I don't know, But, we've got a lot of problems in this town in the sense of trying to make it neat and clean. Well, heck, we're parking cars on city streets overnight. We're parking in parkways. We're parking up in front of the front yards. We've got trucks that are out there with H plates sitting in the neighborhoods.
Art, I'm going to give you your 5 minutes.
Okay.
I agree with you,
appreciate
and that's why we're
your
enforcing
time,
those other
and I'm
codes.
sure I went over, right? And again, council, appreciate you letting me to speak tonight, but I just want, voice my opinion, and thank you very much.
No, and Art, thanks. Art, thanks for your service too. It takes time to do these things. All right, so I have some thoughts as I wrote down here, but we'll go through the council and let's hear everybody out. Jim, I'm going to start on your side. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, thanks. I guess I first want to appreciate everyone for coming out. As some of you probably said, you don't want to be in our shoes. A lot of times we did ask to be in this position. Some of us were asked to be in this position to kind of speak on behalf of our communities, coming out and doing some of this stuff. And there are some times when there's just a couple reporters sitting in here and nobody else cares because we're talking about policies and rules and budgets and so forth, right? It's a lot of mundane things. I wish there were a lot more people coming out here and supporting us doing a lot of those other things and making sure that Lockport's great, right? Everything we're doing up here is trying to make Lockport great. But I understand where everyone's coming from. This topic is supposed to be, right, it started as city pride, right? It's an effort that the new board, now since I've been on it, has been we're trying to clean up a lot of things. We've done a lot of policies and procedures with the town, and some of you may know that, some of you may not, but I want to make sure that everyone knows that. We're passed some purchasing policies, ethics policies, and so forth, new development policies. So we're in a very great momentum right now to kind of get a lot of things going in the city in terms of development and so forth. Joanne's been spearheading a lot of the, cleaning up, the trees. Somebody mentioned here trees and weeds, and grass and so forth, right? Those are all little bits of the whole picture. And every time you go to a town hall, right, and you talk to the mayor's always talking about, there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. RVs is just a piece of that, right? It's a piece of what's actually going on when we're doing this. Some things to state when we're actually talking about, somebody said we love Lockport. They love Lockport, and that's why you want to stay in Lockport. I think nobody's up to here for their own reasons. Everyone up here loves Lockport, and they're doing this for the better of the whole of Lockport. And there's probably some people there that probably have long grass, probably want to keep long grass, don't want to cut it every week. But that's not Lockport pride, that's not maintaining, we've got a lot of procedures and policies for that too, the property maintenance codes. This code has been in effect for a long time. So I have to admit, there's probably some people, as the mayor stated, that probably knew about this, probably shut one eye and said, let me take that gamble, let me have the RV here and let's see what's there. I understand some people probably have 4 inches, right? That's nominal, we can figure that out if something has to happen with, 4 inches that's there. And again, if this takes more time to look at it and so forth, but it's not a knee-jerk reaction. This is part of something that's been here for a long time. We've all pushed to make sure that we're starting to do the code enforcement. We've been talking to our chief here to sit there and say, let's start looking at everything that we're doing, every artery, every neighborhood and so forth. Because to be honest, there are RV owners, as probably people are sitting out here, that love RVs and do that. I'm a camper, love it, right? I don't have one. But there are other people that understand that if you have an RV, you have a big fifth wheel trailer or anything like that, that it's like buying your car. You probably need to know that you have to change the oil. You have to maintain it, you have to store it, you have to do anything like that. A lot of people that I've talked to that have RVs, they've always said, like, I know that if I buy an RV in my municipality, I have to look at the municipality and see if they can store it. If I can't store it on site, I have to find a place to store it, and it's expensive, right? Somebody said $1,500 a year. I get it. This is all about price, and that's there. And some of the friends said, hey, I've got an RV that I don't get in for 9 months out of the year sometimes. Sometimes I don't even get in for 2 years. And those are the ones that we see, right? Everyone's got that bad case of, and we walked around, we all looked and said, here's the RV with grass growing out of the wheels. Here's one that's rusted. We didn't want to get into anything subjective and said, you've got a great looking one, you spent $40,000 on it, but somebody else has got one that's 15 years old and it looks horrible. Let's tow it, let's ticket it. It's not about being subjective, it's being fair across the board when we're doing this. And you have to understand, there's probably some neighbors that are looking out their window at some people's RVs, probably don't like, it blocked the view. Some are 9, 13 feet tall or so forth. They probably don't like that. Maybe are probably trying to be a good neighbor and saying, let me not complain, let me not do that. We have actually gotten some emails in support of this RV ordinance because we are trying to do what we're doing with the city. So I think it's a delicate balance when we're actually doing it here. I appreciate everyone coming out here. I just wanted to give a little bit of background of why we're kind of talking, this is, again, an old ordinance, but we are pushing for all of our ordinances to be enforced so we can clean up Lockport all the way across. So thank you for everyone's time.
Chris, what do you got?
I've had the opportunity to speak with some of you, and I understand that everybody who has an RV is very passionate about it, right? This is something that I think from speaking with some of you, I never camped, I never had an RV, so I don't understand that, but I get that it's sort of a way of life. Many of you who have an RV, you grew up as a child with an RV going camping, so I understand that you're very passionate about it. But on the other side, I've heard from residents who are completely for this ordinance. So it is a delicate balance. It is something that has been on the books. And I know in speaking with some of you, you've acknowledged the fact that, well, I understand that I didn't know the ordinance, but I know that ignorance of the law isn't an excuse. At the same time, I understand that it's a big investment that you made in this RV. It's something that you probably saved a long time to do. to be able to make that purchase, you know, whether it was something that you should have looked at before you made that investment, I think, I mean, I would have, but, you know, hindsight is 20/20. I'm willing to listen to suggestions as to how this ordinance can be made different. I know Mr. Justice has said that he's willing to meet with other residents and have a resident committee to try and look at it and make some suggestions. I'm open to listening to it. I'm not saying this is it, this is the way it needs to be, but like Alderman Petracco has pointed out, there needs to be some sort of bright line because we can't be subjective about this. So at some point, there's going to need to be a bright line rule. We can't just go by and say, well, we like that RV, but we don't like that RV. You know, this one, you know, is prettier than this one. So, you know, this one can stay and this one can't. So there needs to be a bright line rule. And I understand that there has been changes in the building of these RVs. As Mr. Justice pointed out when I spoke to him, that, you know, RVs today, you know, they have sides that come out, and in order to accommodate that they have to be higher because there needs to be clearance over the wheel well. I get that, but there needs to be some sort of bright line rule, and there needs to be a balance with the residents that don't have, didn't grow up is going on RV camping trips and don't appreciate, you know, maybe having a neighbor with an RV in their driveway. So I think I'm open to listening to suggestions. I haven't heard anything yet that would offer a solution, but I'm all ears. If somebody has some sort of bright idea that is a great solution that's going to make everybody happy, I'm willing to listen. But I mean, at this point, I think that there needs to be a bright line, and until I hear that or get that suggestion, I think that the ordinance is on the books, and at this point, it probably needs to be enforced.
JR?
Well, first of all, I'm speaking on, I grew up in an RV family, so I know what it's like to have an RV. We had one in our driveway my whole life. Luckily, we didn't have ordinance back then. If we did, I think we would have fell under them. I think we had a small trailer, a small family way in the back. But it wasn't the prettiest camper. I'm sure people looked at it and said, why do they have that camper on their driveway all the time? But speaking, I too spoke to Mr. Justice. I talked to a couple other people. I talked to Tim Maslin. I received an email from Frank DeSandri. I've heard from concerned people. You're going to start probably hearing the same, well, there's 8 of us. You're going to start hearing the same story over and over. I'm more with Chris. I don't like I mean, we have changes in the RV world. I mean, they're getting taller, they're getting bigger. Now, just because they're getting bigger, does that mean we have to approve an 38-footer in somebody's driveway? No, I'm not going to go there and say that. But if I'm going to say, is 35 more realistic than 34 or something, then I'm open to different suggestions. If we have to extend the height, you know, I'm listening to talk about that. I'm not going to just come and say, this is the way it's written, this is the way it's going to get ticketed. But that still is not going to make it right for everybody. I mean, still people might have you know, like I said, a 38-footer, 40-footer, and they're going to have to store it. Or whatever we decide. And I'd like to look into more things. I mean, is it okay to have I mean, just putting it to the side, I mean, I think this could be looked at and tightened up. And I'm for the idea of, you know, getting some more suggestions and trying to work. I mean, do I want RVs all over the town? No, but I don't say it no that I'm against it. It's no, it's like, yes, you're against the ugly ones, and you're against I mean, all of a sudden it's like, okay, let's just open it up to all RVs, now everybody can have it. The other thing is we have to remember, though, we are talking just about smaller portions of Lockport. I mean, there are a lot of HOAs in this town where you can't have one anyway, so it almost seems to be a concerned area that we're dealing with. And so we're almost trying to talk to these people and say, this is what we want. Now we're creating an HOA basically for your area. I heard one suggestion. I mean, we were sent an email today with a lot of the local surrounding communities on what their RV ordinances are. And there's some great ideas out there. And actually, it's one that also Tim Maslin presented, and I'm surprised, Tim, you didn't get up and speak. But he said, which is also the New Lenox one, where it's like, I camp during the summer. Would the council consider maybe having a Memorial 1st to Labor Day, Memorial Day to Labor Day, I can park my camper then, and then I'll store it the other days, because I really don't use it during the winter, and I'm not sure how many people store it or use it during the winter. I don't know how many people that would make happy. It probably wouldn't have made the Galogles very happy, because we went down to Florida at Christmas time, and we went to Florida during Easter time. So, I know there are other things that can come into it, but I think I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't have to be this fine print, 12-foot, 34-foot, 10,000 pounds. I'm up for negotiation, but like I said, I'm more with you guys also, but we do have to set a line. Is it 35 foot? Anything over is wrong. Is it 12 feet or whatever but we do have to come up with black and white in that and then enforce it. So I guess I rambled long enough.
Ryan, what do you got?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to the residents that came out and voiced your opinion in a calm manner. That is really appreciated. Again, I don't want to repeat what's been said, but as Art Kuhn said, some of these things that we are dealt with are very tough, okay? I know we were elected to deal with them, but that's just the way it is. They are some tough decisions. So also what I want to add is some of the things I've already talked about, but again, we need some clear direction on what we do want to do. I have seen some campers around town. Some look like absolutely beautiful. It's amazing how nice their camper is and how well they take care of them. And there's a few out there that, as said before, they don't, okay? I think, again, as a council, how do we curb that? How do we address those, okay? Without saying his looks good, yours doesn't. And then it's subjective. How do you tell somebody their camper don't look good? Well, to them it may, okay? Those are some of the things that we have to deal with. But again, they're there, okay? For instance, somebody may have a small camper in their driveway or inside, whatever, may not be visible. Okay, I understand. And it falls in the guidelines, fine. But there are campers that also fill up the whole driveway. Okay, their driveway's fine, they're backing out, but maybe it's their neighbor next door that maybe can't see when backing out. I don't know. Those are just issues I'm thinking about. Maybe they don't have issues, but could they? Okay, maybe they do. And we are such a diverse community where we have some older homes and we have newer homes, and what I mean by subdivisions. And it was also brought up to me, well, maybe if we just, look at the older part of town and, kind of see what we can do with that. And that was a thought, but then as I started to think about it, we really don't want to, split that up between old and new. I think we're a community. We're one town. So, I appreciate the thought in that, but we want to remain as one town. So we don't want to have an ordinance in, say, central Lockport and not on the east end or something. And I think we need to say, no, that was a thought, but I don't think that's a good idea. So again, there was some good dialogue here tonight. I don't know if I'm ready to say what we should and shouldn't do. I got some open ears, I can tell you that. But we've got some choices that we got to deal with here. Okay. And I know there's people that have concerns with campers that aren't here too. I've gotten an email, heard some other voices saying, yeah, they're a nuisance in the driveway. But I guess I can leave it at that, saying maybe we should, I'm not against listening, but I think we have to draw a line somewhere. Thank you.
All right, Brian, thanks. Darren?
Well, I have a little bit different take than what we've heard thus far. I am a RV owner. I own a 16-foot Starcraft. I have no idea how high it is, but I'm pretty sure it's at least 9 foot, and with my air conditioner, add another 1.5 feet. It's only 3,300 pounds or so. I do not store my camper at my house. If we were to enforce this ordinance strictly, it would not affect me because I do not store it at my house. However, I'm sympathetic with people. I spoke with Mr. Kuhn last night. He called me up, and we talked about this, and I asked him to speak about the history of the ordinances that we have here. Yes, what we have here is basically is our entire thick book is Buffalo Grove, Illinois, and we've been adapting to this Buffalo Grove, Illinois. It's worked well for all areas of town that's been developed since approximately 1995, but those that existed in this town prior to 1995, it's tough, like Art says, it's tough. A lot of these areas are non-conforming simply because Lockport was incorporated a long, long time ago. It is true that the RVs of 1990 are not the RVs of today. I believe that we need to look at some of the size limits. I believe that 9 foot is an unrealistic number simply because unless you have a pop-up camper or a little teardrop camper, I don't know any RV that I've ever seen in any RV lot being sold anywhere as I go up and down the interstate that isn't over 9 foot tall. I don't know if 34 feet, I don't know if anybody here in the room has one over 34 feet. There might be 35. Okay, there are some. But there is a limit. I mean, every campground that I've ever looked at, they have a limit of, I think it's 40 feet. Is the limit for the trailer. It's allowed on the campsites, and so I doubt that anybody is really purchasing especially a one that's being pulled by a truck, maybe even a fifth wheel, that's going to be longer than 40 feet. I have no idea. I do believe Mr. Justice's suggestion of having a citizens committee to go ahead and address some of these things, to actually go ahead and bring this ordinance more in line with 2016 rather than 1990 or even 2008. I'd be happy to serve on that committee. However, I think there might be a conflict of interest simply because I am an RV owner, so I have an inherent bias there. So I would much rather somebody who does not own an RV sit as a representative from the council with these people. Because I don't have to be educated. I think that there's some good compromises to bring this ordinance up to date. Remember, our ordinance book really is it's a living document, and it's not a dead document. And here it is. And we are adapting and we're updating and bringing it to current. In 2016, and who knows, in 10 years, we may need to go ahead and who's ever sitting up here, I won't be, but who's ever sitting up here in 10 years or so, they'll have to go ahead and address the issues for 2026 instead of 2016. So I would like to have, I would really like to not have this September 1st thing as being the day. I really would like to have is if we can agree to have a committee where Mr. Justice could chair or whatever, and over the next few months and bring us something for next camping season. Camping season isn't Memorial Day to Labor Day. I'll be camping down in Southern Illinois Columbus Day weekend. So I think that's a reasonable thing for right now. But I don't want campers or trailers or trucks or anything else that are up on blocks, and I don't want them with trees growing out of the tongues, and I don't want unlicensed campers. And I don't think any of the other RV owners in this room do either. There is a distinction between a vehicle, which could include an RV that has an expired 1998 tag and a 6-inch diameter tree growing out of the tongue, and a $60,000 camper that I see people going out and polishing and waxing every other week. There is a distinction. So I just hope that for right now, we can just use a little discretion, agree to a citizens type of committee, and however many people we have on that could be discussed over next week or so, and maybe Mr. Justice could come in and meet with our city administrator and the mayor, or whomever, our community development director, and really go ahead and come up with something that is appropriate for today instead of 1990.
Thanks, Darren. Jason?
Thanks. So I don't think there's much new to be said here, right? I did actually want to stop before I even give my opinion, kind of actually thank all of you that came out, right? It's, in my opinion, rare that we have something that, I don't know how many people are here, 25 people show up for, and it's a productive discussion. It's usually everybody's so mad, it doesn't go well. I think this has actually been a productive discussion. And, you know, I sense kind of some understanding on both sides, and I think we could probably work something out. You know, I don't know if everybody will be happy with the end goal, but I think there's probably some common ground that we can find. So I definitely appreciate that. My overarching thought here is there's an ordinance on the books. It has to be enforced. However, like Alderman Deskin said, we've got to make sure that ordinance is what we want. So first and foremost, right, if this is going to be something that we work on and talk about, I think maybe September 1st doesn't end up being the right date to do enforcement. Whenever we finalize what we want the ordinance to be, we're going to have to enforce it. But as for now, I think we're all going to kind of open discussion. So I'm definitely in favor of postponing any enforcement, at least until we agree to what the rules are. You know, Art, I think you had a couple of very good comments, right? You felt like, at first you were worried that it might have been selective enforcement. You were really mad, right? And unfortunately, that's what the city has had for, I don't even know how many years, 15 years. That's what we can't have, right? So whatever the ordinance is, like other aldermen have said, I think it needs to be black and white. We're going to follow it. Some of your campers that are not allowed now in RVs may be allowed, may not be allowed, I don't know. But we can't put the police department in code enforcement in a position where they're determining what's good and bad. In what I said to Ben when I talked to him on the phone is, we can't legislate judgment, right? It just needs to be what's permissible, what's not permissible. And I think there's probably some room there to sort of find a common ground of what works. I also got the email from Mr. Justice. I heard that he had talked to a few people and was coming tonight, so I didn't call him back. But I did drive by, and I'll tell you, Reef Road in that area probably has the highest concentration of campers, RVs, whatever, recreational vehicles in the city. My opinion is that Mr. Justice's looked fine. It's kind of on the side of the house, in front of the garage. It was by no means an eyesore. But even as you drive through that neighborhood, there are some that look better than others, and we've got to figure out what are we okay with and what are we not okay with. You know, if it's some sort of citizen board where there's some discussion and a recommendation that comes before us, I'm okay with that. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. One thing I will say, though, is I've heard a couple of times before today and today that RVs have changed since the 1990s. That's fine. They've gotten better. I've done a little bit of time in pop-up campers when I was younger. I have a friend who has a very nice RV now that I think, you know, he takes his family out and enjoys it, not in Lockport, and that's great. RVs have gotten a lot better. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to change our ordinance to fit all current RVs, though, either, right? And so I think we've just got to sort of figure this out. You know, we're just giving individual opinions now, so that's kind of mine, but I sense that's the way that this is going. But Alderman Deskin's idea of, you know, and I understand, you know, we can't let code enforcement just make their own decisions. So we had a couple of issues. They've got to address it. They addressed it. They put a September 1st date on for everybody. But I do think that maybe we consider postponing that date, you know, whatever timeframe it determines to where we get an ordinance that we're all comfortable with. We set that in place. We give a reasonable amount of time to make sure everybody is within compliance. And again, I only drove past Mr. Justice's individually. I saw a bunch of other RVs. I don't know your individual, everybody here, if their RVs are appropriate or not. What we settle on may or may not, your RV may or may not be appropriate. I don't know. But I do think that we need something. Nobody wants the bad ones in town, but we just need to set some ground rules, figure out what it is, and have an open discussion, and then enforce it. It's a little bit of a tangent, but just so residents know, this is not the only ordinance that we're worried about. I've sent a couple other emails. My position is always, if we have an ordinance on the book, we have to enforce it. We can figure out what makes sense. We've got to be fair. I'm not telling people to go write really expensive tickets and fine residents. That's not my goal. But if we've taken the time to put an ordinance on the books, that's how we're supposed to be. Whatever the ordinance is related to, that's what we're supposed to comply with. Then I think we need to enforce it. If we're not going to enforce an ordinance, or we don't think an ordinance is right, then as Alderman Deskin said, it can be a living, breathing document. We can change it. We can get rid of them. But this is not the only ordinance. I know this is the main one that has impacted the folks in the room. But my position is always going to be, we have to enforce the ordinances that are on the books. In this case, I think we can maybe take a look at it and just make sure what we have on the books makes sense.
Thanks, Jason. Bob?
All right, thank you. Appreciate our discussion the other day, Mr. Justice. I appreciate the education that you gave me. I had no idea there's so many different varieties of RVs, campers, pop-ups, and what have you. Something that really struck me with our conversation was, and I didn't even consider this or realize this, was the added expense some of the homeowners actually put into their property to accommodate their campers and RVs. For example, some residents added a side driveway so they could accommodate their campers on the side of their home. That was an added expense. In Mr. Justice's case, he had an additional garage that he added, and along with that, he ran a 60-amp wire so he could plug in his trailer so it could be fully charged on a consistent basis. So I think that's something that we may have forgotten about, that there was an additional expense, whether the homeowner realized there was an ordinance or not, because let's say they did know the ordinance was there, but we never enforced it. It's like, oh, they never enforced it, so I'm just going to go ahead and put on these additional expenses, or maybe they didn't realize there was an ordinance in place and they added the additional expense. So now we're telling them, it's like, well, now you got a storage. I took the opportunity the other night to research some as far as what would it cost to store, and it's based on size. I've seen anywhere from $50, $75 to $100 a month. I didn't see anything quite over $100 a month, but that's an additional expense. But at the same time, there is an ordinance on the book, so we're in a catch-22. So I think the best course of action, and many of us up here have already said this, I think your recommendation, Mr. Justice, as far as running a committee, a citizen committee, is a very good idea. See what kind of solutions that you could come up with the committee, and take that information from there and move forward to see if we could tweak, change, accommodate, whatever word you want to use, as far as the situation we're in currently. And then, by the way, I noticed you wore your campers shirt today, so I appreciate all the work and the rest of the campers that the Moose have done over the years to put on such wonderful parties for the kids at the lodge. So those are some of my comments.
Joanne, what do you got?
Okay, so we're sorry that you even had to make the trip here. I know this ruffled a lot of people's, feathers in reference to this ordinance. This was not supposed to be to penalize anybody. We're not out there to make money on this. This is strictly what the whole project was, is to start dressing up Lockport. We are on a course to improve Lockport in its appearance and how people project us as they come through our neighborhoods. My view is a little bit different than perhaps some of the people, my fellow aldermen here. I'm in real estate. When I go into a neighborhood and I'm trying to bring a buyer and welcome them into our neighborhood, and we see a lot of things that should not be in the yards, in the front doors, or vehicles parked, covered, you know that they've been there for months and years. That does not show very well when it comes to people coming into our subdivisions and looking at how people maintain their properties. Yes, there are nice RVs, there are some that are questionable, but how do we make that decision on who should have a camper out in their yard and who can or cannot? It just doesn't seem fair. We have an ordinance that all we're doing is just bringing it up and making everyone aware that there's an ordinance that was put on the books. The latest version was in 2008. Yes, it may not be 2016, but it's pretty close. Yes, people buy bigger campers, people buy smaller campers. I've been an RV owner also. I'm still in the recreational vehicles. We have boats, we have what we call toys, those that, are boaters. So, but I know that I cannot, and of course I do live in an HOA, complex, but I do know that it's not always the right thing to do is to park vehicles, recreation vehicles, boats or whatever, in your front yard. Your neighbor may not be saying anything, but they're probably thinking, what an eyesore. So we are trying to represent everyone, not just a few. And I know that you're passionate because I'm passionate about my recreation vehicles too. So I get it. But our job is to, if we're going to improve the looks of Lockport, it's going to affect everyone. Yes, those that are in HOA subdivisions, we already know the discipline. But I got to tell you, some of your neighbors may not. And and Mr. Justice, thank you, and Mrs. Stash, I was on your street. I did not bother you or knock on your door to let you know that I was there, but I wanted to just have an overview of driving through. If I had a buyer in my car and I drove through, it would be very questionable. I got to tell you, there are so many vehicles parked in the driveways that I don't know that all buyers would be very happy to live in a neighborhood that stores outside vehicles.
We're going to let our alderwoman speak, please. Thank you. Go ahead, finish, Joy.
I'm just going to wrap it up. It's hard to make a decision on who's going to be fined or who's not going to be fined. How do we can we grandfather in those that have already spent all this money? Maybe that's another a way of clearing this up, because I know a lot of you have invested a lot of money in your vehicles. We're not trying to make an HOA of all the subdivisions. No, ma'am, we really aren't, or at least that's not.
Please, Joanne, finish.
We're just trying to get an appearance for Lockport so that we can grow and people would want to move into Lockport and be proud. And everyone can be proud to live in Lockport.
All right, thanks. All right, here's my thoughts on this. I think, disagree with a couple things you said, Art. While we may have originally, this might have been a Buffalo Grove ordinance, this has been refined a number of times since then. So it wasn't just, whether it was a knee-jerk reaction in the beginning, I don't believe it's ended up that way. clearly the ordinance has been refined and looked at. I think what we need to do is understand the spirit of what this law is about, and that's what's most important. Everybody pays taxes. I know that, it's like I pay taxes, I should be able to do this, but so does your neighbor. And I think the spirit of these laws are about when you have something that's in the driveway that's blocking other neighbors' views of their neighborhood, I think that's where we're not being courteous to our neighbors. So I too want to be able to look down the street. I want to be able to see Zoe riding her bike. I don't want to have to look at a camper or walk down to the end of my driveway to be able to see her playing down the street. Those are the things that I think the spirit of the law is about. A couple of things that I heard that I think actually are interesting is the fact that, we do allow trailers to be parked on the side or in the back. I know not every house can do that. I get it. But the idea that I think the spirit, again, of the law is to say if it's on the side of the house, not blocking a driveway, other people's views who are part of a neighborhood, I don't understand why it's 34 feet. If you have a 50-foot-long house and you have a 49-foot-long trailer, to me, those kind of things, what difference does it make? The spirit of the law is to get it out of the general view of the neighborhood so that we can all be good neighbors. Same thing with the height. If you're not extending past your roof line, what difference does it make to me? If the spirit of the law is to keep it out of the view so that everybody can enjoy the neighborhood. Everyone can drive into the neighborhood and look at their home as they come up, which they're all proud of too, as opposed to a neighbor's recreational vehicle. So I think maybe a couple things about looking, as long as the spirit of the law, whether it's length or height, maybe it is allowable to be adjusted as long as we're still keeping it out of sight on the side or in the back. I think those couple things make sense. I certainly agree with extending our enforcement. I have no problem with that, whether we make a single change to this or not. I think still extending it off into the wintertime, well after the season is done, to give everybody an opportunity to adjust, I think is appropriate. Again, this was never meant to be anything punitive. We've always just tried to, that's going to start enforcing these things as they should be. We shouldn't have a law on the books and not enforce it. Or as Art, you mentioned, selectively. That's the worst kind of law, is when people just go out and selectively have a problem. Either we're going to do this or not. I think because of the spirit of the law of keeping a neighborhood uncluttered is important, I do think we need to keep it. Whether we adjust height and length, as long as it stays on the side or in the back, it may be appropriate to me. And I think, those are my general thoughts. So,
What are your thoughts about Mr. Justice's offer to?
for a committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to be careful, man. Honest to God, I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to find a way that we're going to rescind this. I will not rescind this, because for the people that have been doing this, there's enough people that say, hey, before I buy a $40,000 camper or more, I'm going to look at the codes, and they were already familiar knowing that they couldn't park in the driveways, so they've been storing it. If we rescind this, we'll have 300 campers flood into the city, and then you'll have a whole nother crew in here complaining about where did all these campers come from. I moved here knowing there was a law that says campers didn't park next to my house. So that will be the other side that we'll deal with. So rescinding this is not an option.
Just a little perspective, we asked the police department to run the Secretary of State's permits in regards to registered RVs. I believe it was 82 RVs in Lockport. You're talking less than 1% of 10,000 households in Lockport. Just as a perspective, Class A, Class C, fifth wheels, those are large vehicles. Trailers and hybrids, which are kind of a new model in the last, decade. I think when you talked about the spirit of the ordinance, I think the reason they set it at 9 feet is there's not many campers under 9 feet. I think it was intended probably to allow pop-ups, very type model, and maybe some hybrids. I think if you go from 9 to 12 feet, you start getting into some subjective things, and do we need to analyze whether we count air conditioning or not? I mean, the staff perspective is we need your direction. We don't have necessarily an opinion. We all have taken calls and emails on this issue, and You know, I appreciate the conversation. I think it's been a good one. You know, resident committee, you know, we have a citizens committee. It's this elected body. You are our citizens. You are elected to discuss these issues and give staff direction at the committee of the whole, which we are doing tonight. So certainly you know, if directed, staff can meet with residents. I'm not sure what the outcome would be. If the council's dissent is that an ordinance needs to be in place, and if we're tweaking it to accommodate 12 or 13, and you still have 60 that are out of compliance, I'm not sure we're reaching our mission or goal in regards to what the collective RV owners want. For the record, I have a camper. I keep my camper off-site storage. It costs me about $50 a month. I think there's options out there that people can find. I think we definitely need to give them more time. The September 1st deadline certainly wasn't meant to be punitive. If it's January 1st, if it's next season, whatever the council decides is fine with us.
Yeah.
Mayor, if I can make a suggestion?
Yes.
Maybe if we keep everything enforced, and if it's September 1st or October 1st or anything like that, I'd rather say there's a soft extension for deadline and everything like that, because nothing major is going to change. I think we're all, that ordinance is there. We're not going to rescind that ordinance. I think we're all in agreement with that. And then that kind of gives you a soft deadline for residents to kind of voice their opinion. Maybe if they have a tweak to the ordinance that, you know, the gentleman said he's only 4 inches off. If that's a consistent thing, right, every camper is now 4 inches off, then that's something, that's a no-brainer to do. If you're the only person, that's probably not a change, right, that we'd want to make. But at least we can have that conversation sooner than later and it not drag on till January, December, and so forth. So I think when we're doing this, again, it's been an ordinance for so many years, 20 years and everything right now. I think we were generous in saying September 1st. I'm open to October 1st. It's one of those things, but one vote for that we're here.
Most people that do keep their campers in storage in the winter is usually done at the wintertime. November 1st, you know, is appropriate. January 1st can be extended, whatever you guys want.
All right. Anything else before I wrap this up? All right. So this is what we'll do. My suggestion to you, we extend this out to November 1st. There's a couple things I think are worthy talking about. I think whether keeping things on the side, whether they're height or width, as long as they don't extend past the house or the roof, that seems to be reasonable to me. But as opposed to, hey, you're only 4 inches off, we'll let it slide. I think it needs to be easy to understand.
Okay.
But before we just make a grand decision on it, let's just kind of think on that here a little bit on what's appropriate. Mr. Justice, if you want to give a buzz, yeah.
If I may, I don't know if it kind of works with everybody coming back up here. There's just that's why I've asked for a committee. I'm not telling you what to do. I'd like to make some suggestions. Speaking to some of the aldermen at my house, they really didn't know much about an RV. So I asked if they really were familiar with the ordinance.
And I'll tell you, like I told you, I didn't even know about it until those two guys came and complained. It was, honestly, I used to have a guy park his 18-wheeler next to my house, and I thought, oh, that's Lockport, nothing I could do about it. Well, it's actually not true. There was an ordinance, but most people abuse it, and so I didn't know about it. I am perfectly glad, the idea of the height, and I hear what Ben's saying, it's they probably did cut it off at a certain height to exclude a lot, but I have no problem looking at what I believe is the spirit of not cluttering up a neighborhood. So this is what we'll do, okay? We're certainly going to extend this deadline so that we can, whether we change anything to this or not, I think everybody who's either been unaware of this or not needs to have some opportunity to either put a pad in the side of their house or find storage. So I have no problem doing that, extending this deadline. As far as looking at like, is the height and length requirement an option, I'm open to it, but I'm not going to make a decision here because there may be something I'm not thinking about that's not appropriate. So why don't we do this? Mr. Justice, if you want to
Explore
talk.
some suggestions, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
Can
Well,
you
Do you want to
gather,
meet as a group, or you want me to pass along? I'd rather meet
No, you're gonna
with
meet with
more than
staff.
one person.
You're gonna meet with staff. Maybe I'll talk to one of the aldermen if there's somebody that wants to talk about it, but, and then I may look for somebody who, I'll try to find some people to talk through this.
One of the other things is that you may store yours at a lot. I store mine next to my house. It's actually just back from the face of my house. I take the insurance off of it. I take the collision off of it in the wintertime to save myself some money because it's parked next to my house. I don't have to insure it. I don't want to put it in a lot where it can be broken into. It's next to my house.
Rich, that's stuff I can't help. I mean, that's stuff like if you're gonna buy recreational vehicles and they don't fit, you have to store them off-site, that's what it is. As far as like if it's able to be on the side of the house and out of the view or in the back, I think that's appropriate, because then it's considerate for the whole neighborhood. And that's what we have to think about, is everybody in the neighborhood, not just the RV owners.
And if you listen to what I had said in my initial statement, which didn't get too deep into things, I just said that I tried to be considerate with my neighbors. I have paved it. It is behind the front of the house. I have made a considerable $10,000 investment on being able to plug it in now behind.
Yeah, and like I
And
said,
3 foot over
if
from
I'm
the lot
hearing it
line.
right, that seems to make sense to me.
It's just that there are some things in the ordinance that do need to be tweaked with the current standards, height and length.
We're gonna look into it.
And then
Rich,
part of it
Rich.
is, have you looked at that word? What is
I said I'll
that?
look into it, Bob. I said I'll look into it. So, but as far as like parking forward of the house, I just don't see rescinding that. So while that's gonna maybe a problem on some folks,
I'm not asking to have the ordinance rescinded. I was the abandoned car officer for 5 lousy years. And do you think that was fun? I hated that job, but I did it.
all right,
Okay, and did the same thing. I had to make decisions on,
well.
follow the ordinance. And I didn't even know, to be honest with you, I didn't know the ordinance was part of that.
All right, so let me just wrap this up. Bob, you're welcome to talk to staff, we'll set something up. I have no problem looking at the height and length, as long as it never exceeds past the house or it's in the back. That, to me, if it starts creeping out in front, then we break the spirit of this law. So let's talk about it. We're certainly going to extend, I'm making a decision here, but like, if you guys are willing to extend it to at least November 1st, and stop the, kind of panic of having to get this thing out of here.
Okay with November 1st.
Thank you for your consideration.
All right, folks. Thanks for coming out and sharing your opinions.
thank you, everyone.
All right. What do we got next?
Property? Wash your vehicles.
Keith, you gonna take that one?
5-minute break?
You want a 30-second break?
Let's do a surplus. It's just
One item.
No, yeah, let's
Last
get
item?
through.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, the other item on the agenda was the city pride letter, which has began with Alderwoman Bartleson. We've made some adjustments to it. We can certainly hold off in the next few weeks as we discuss this RV part of the ordinance, and we'll send it out. We'll bring it back to send it out later.
Excuse me, Ben, don't you think, though, just so that people understand where we're coming from, maybe this might be a letter of education to them?
We could certainly change a little text on here about what the current ordinance suggests, and that compliance is going to be expected by November 1st.
Just want
and-
everyone to be educated what that ordinance
Yeah.
is all about.
Sure.
Okay, so I don't know that holding back that letter is going to really do us any justice. The people need to know what that ordinance is all about, and then they can, at least, if they want to investigate it, that's totally fine. They can do whatever they feel they need to, but
And a lot of it talks
We're
about
on course to
landscaping and
educate,
thoroughfares.
you
Yeah,
know,
it's
the
more than
residents.
just the RV. So that's just one paragraph. Okay.
Get that out now.
We'll clean it up and change the date and give current status.
Yeah, really, at the moment, that's the only thing I see changing. Just change the date for that.
Okay.
yeah.
Everything else seems appropriate.
I mean, is everyone in agreement? Shouldn't that go out still? So
Yeah,
that
it's
way-
It's going to go out, it would go out with the water bills next month then.
Okay.
Okay. And I think the only item we did the audit is the police department had a request to declare surplus items. Chief, do you have that?
Mayor, council members, we have 3 old squad cars, 3 Crown Victorias. The highest mileage is 119,000, the other are less than that, but they're beat pretty well. As well as Tom Fulton's 2003 Chevy truck that was a seized vehicle. We'd be asking that those vehicles allowed to be surplused and auctioned off to the highest bidder through open off auctions.
All right, any questions about that?
Questions, yes. Chief, I'm sorry for not emailing you, but I noticed a couple of the ones have paint problems. Are we getting rid of them because of the paint problems, or no?
That's part of the reason is paint, but they're at the end of their life too.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a good question. We had 2 vehicles that had paint problems from the factory, and we had painted them over the years, and then for some reason it didn't adhere to the aluminum. So,
Thank you.
All right, so we're good putting on as an action item?
Yes.
All right.
Consent or?
Oh, I'm sorry, consent.
That too.
All right, anything else? Open comments, anything? Big anything, new business?
Open comment, I guess, with all the, just really quick, with all the stuff that's going on in the nation, community violence, police officer violence and everything, everyone please be careful out there. Chief, can make sure everyone's being safe out there and the community's being safe.
I would, thank you very much, and I would like to say that over the last week and a half, we've had residents of Lockport come to the police station and give us cakes, flowers, of course, donuts, and
I wasn't going to say it.
beef sandwiches, sub sandwiches. I mean, the response from the Lockport community has been overwhelming and very well received by our police officers. I'd also like to say that today, the mayor and all 3 of our chaplains were at our roll call at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they saw our afternoon shift leave. They addressed our afternoon shift, and the morning shift that comes on at 7, they addressed half the department and gave them words of encouragement. And again, well received, Mayor. Thank you very much. That was a really nice thing to do.
You guys, you're important to us, and I know there's a lot of duress right now, so, very good. All right, my friends, anything else?
Thank you to everybody who is supporting Main Street Lockport. They are having their lobster boil this Saturday, and they sold out. I think they have about 70 or maybe even 80 people attending, which we appreciate the support. But also, you could still stop by. They're going to have a band. I think, 5 guys named Mo, and you can pay $5 and come listen to music if you didn't want the lobster anyway. So, but I really do want to thank people. It's a great organization, Main Street Lockport, trying to do their best to help beautify downtown. And so, like I said, thank you so much.
Right on. All right, there's nothing else. I have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion?
Joanne?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Why don't we take 5? Here, let's rock and roll.
I am not happy.
All right.
Why is this always take?
All right, we're going to start our city council meeting. Alice, can you give us a roll call, please?
Sorry. Okay.
Granicus.
Petracos?
Here.
Capadona?
Here.
Locally?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Deskin?
Here.
Vandermeer?
Here.
Coretta?
Here.
Bartleson?
Here.
Present.
All right, so I'm looking to have a motion to have a consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Bob, Darren, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so this, at this meeting on the consent agenda, we have the city council meeting minutes from July 6th, committee of the whole meeting minutes, July 6th, our payroll period ending July 3rd. We have a variety of bills. There's resolution 16047. There is the 7th and Washington Street reconstruction project, resolution 16048. Our well 14 redrilling and iron filtration amendments, resolution 16051. And then there's the disposal of surplus vehicles from the street department, resolution 16049. So I'm looking for a motion to pass the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
It's Brian, seconded by Jason. Can I have a roll?
I have one question. Did, last time we're here, Chris Holmes said that well 14 was going to be online by today. Today, what's the
I
day
believe
it's
it
gonna be
is. I don't have Amy or Joe with me tonight, but I know it's
Just send us-
producing.
just
Yeah,
send us
email,
that tomorrow?
sure.
Thanks.
Okay.
All set?
We'll have a roll call then?
Petracos?
Yes.
Capadona?
Yes.
Locally?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Coretta?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
7 yeas, or, I'm sorry, 8 yeas, motion carried.
Great.
All right, Ben, CA1.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. CA1 is the brokerage agreement on 929 South State Street. I know Brian is, bless his heart, been patient and hanging out here tonight. We had a few questions at the last meeting, and we wanted to make sure he was here to maybe answer some that we could not. The agreement is in your packet. This is basically, we're going to be seeking a motion to approve an agreement with the Caton Commercial Real Estate Group of Naperville to assist us in finding a user at the site, the old Genovic lot. The price of this property is, we've said, is kind of negotiable. We paid $80,000 for it. We're going to be paying a fee to the brokerage firm for $15,000 once the project is closed. And so there was a lot of questions about, well, what if, is somebody going to buy this and sit on it? Well, the city is going to be brought that agreement in the future. This is just for the brokerage and the representation in the marketplace. So if a buyer gets involved, they're going to have to meet with us, the city, the staff. We will work on a redevelopment agreement for a new building with legal, with staff. We would bring that back to the council, and that's when we're negotiating price. So the price really isn't the determining factor. Certainly the price of the brokerage fee is a determining factor, and we've talked about the differences in commercial rates that they get for commissions and the value of the potential value of the property. And we did a little bit of more homework and found that this fee was reasonable and within the asking price. It's really potentially about some relationships, and Caton Commercial has done a lot of work in the Will County area and other surrounding communities. They have a network of contacts that they can reach out to even before it's listed, and to see the level of interest in developing something in the city of Lockport. It'd be great to have their sign, land for lease, for sale in the downtown, and see if we can get some additional activity. And of course, eventually it'll be on an MLS listing. So I've got Brian here. You can come to the mic if you have any other questions, but we are seeking approval to enter in this agreement for 1 year.
All right, well, let me make a motion to pass. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right, Darren, any seconds?
Second.
JR, all right, any discussion, any questions?
I have a question. So we're hiring brokerage, what are you listing it as? So my confusion is, you list it, you put it out there, and a resident comes up and says, I want to buy that property. It's an investment property, I want to build a hot dog shack, I want to build, it's on the MLS, I can buy it. How do we come back as part of this deal that somebody saw it on MLS and say, no, there's other steps. You have to come to the city council first, and you have to give us your plan.
Well, we're still the owners.
Yeah, we dictate the sale.
But if I'm selling my house, I know the commercial is different. You can reject somebody and say, I don't.
If you don't like their price, yes.
Well,
You don't
okay.
like-
If the terms of the contract is not satisfactory to the board, we do not have to accept, you make a counteroffer.
But price, but I mean, you can, so there's an honest question, because I don't know, and you're expert on this. You sit there and say, you want to sell it for $50,000. What are you putting on it? What is the whole deal? Can somebody say, well, I'm going to offer you 40, I get it, we can deny it. If they said, I'm willing to pay you 100, but I'm going to do whatever I want on that site.
Right.
We still deny the sale.
Well,
It's our
that still
property.
has to be put on the contract. It's got to be submitted as part of the contract, what their stipulations are that they're buying it for this amount of money. We are still in control. We are the owners as the city to do as you wish with that and agree to any terms.
There'll be a separate agreement brought back to the council, just like we did with Embers, and it's a redevelopment agreement. We may agree to sell it for $50,000, we may agree to sell it for $10,000. We wouldn't agree to do that without strict, performance standards in an agreement, contract, that they don't get the title until they do perform what we say, or we get the title back if they don't perform in a certain time period, so.
But, so just so I clear too, so Jim's question though is, when it's officially being presented by a Realtor, are there other, do laws come into play that like, well, you can't just say no if they're meeting the
You have to
price?
submit
Let's,
all
the gentleman's at the podium, let him speak, hold on, since we're all guessing.
You waited all
Hi, I'm
night.
Brian Blackmore with Caton Commercial. I understand your concern with the MLS, because the MLS has its own set of rules and everything. So as I spoke with Ben, we could come up with a set of bidding instructions, per se, that would kind of be attached with the MLS listing. As far as CoStar and LoopNet and i6 and all these other commercial exchanges, we don't have those type of rules. So I would work with Ben and council and come up with those stipulations that they have to adhere to make an offer. And we can certainly, put anything we want in the final contract. And as I mentioned to Ben, I don't foresee anyone just coming and making an offer on this property. They're gonna have to come and talk to staff, talk to council members, and see what your vision is. So we'll have an opportunity to talk with them and understand what they're trying to do before we enter into any contract.
Or it can be subject to the conditions that perhaps the buyer is looking for. They can write a contract, but it will be subject to them or the city approving what stipulations perhaps that.
And we can stipulate that it's a city contract and not just a standard MLS Realtor Association contract.
Jeff, you-
It's still, like, I sold my house, and it was like, I set my price, somebody met my price, they took it, and if I said, no, I need you to come in and paint and redo the backyard and everything before you bought this house, they'd say, that's totally different. I don't know if there's a difference between residential and commercial, right? That somebody's doing
If you
that.
put a specific set of instructions on the listing on the MLS, then that sale is contingent upon those, as long as you put it with it.
And that's what I'm missing, like, what is you must be a developer.
So can we make it as general as, it has to be a project that is approved, or a development that's approved by a city council?
Yes.
Meets
or
the aesthetics
subject-
of downtown, meets the,
Subject to the terms and conditions of the city contract, and we can list those out as
detailed as you want or as general as you want.
Our expectations are retail or restaurant first floor. You can have apartments, residential,
Certainly do that.
offices, second floor. I mean,
I just don't want, if we know what we want, let's put it down what we want, where we're kind of looking at and saying, somebody who's buying this can look at that and say, okay, don't waste my time, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
But I know they want X or something close to X to be fit in that downtown feel and go from there. And I still think that property values, right, you talk about property values, I don't want to hurt downtown property values. So if it's set at a normal appraised property value and the city council works with that and gives you incentives or discounts, at least that MLS is set at a nice price so it doesn't hurt any other property owners. And now, again, I don't know if that works commercial.
I can get it up on the commercial exchanges with no price whatsoever. You can't do that with the MLS. So, you know, however long it takes for us to come up with the language that we want to attach to it on the MLS, we can then put it on the
What is
MLS.
the purpose of not having the price in the commercial?
Well, like Ben was saying, whether you're going to sell it for 100 or 20 or,
Should the buyer, though, know that? I mean, shouldn't we wait for them to bring in an offer, what they feel that
I
property
would
is worth?
rather them call me to say, what's the price? And then I can have the conversation, what are you looking to do? And get their contact. If it's $150,000, $100,000, and people look at it as too much, they don't even call. So.
Okay, so I see what you mean. Your advertisement would not show the price until they
show the
call?
price.
You want them to call you. I got it.
And
Incentives
the
available.
conversation will probably go that, well, it's flexible, there's incentives depending on what you want to do.
Sure.
And then that's when we try to set up a meeting with staff and whoever else needs to be there to start the conversation and understand what they want to do. You know, you're not looking for somebody to say, hey, I want to buy that lot for $100,000 and I'll close next week. So, I mean, it will be a conversation that has to be had.
But on the MLS, you're restricted, you have to list a price, is that what you're saying?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, that's not our forte, but we do have that access, and it's just to get it out there to all the residential brokers as well. But,
And in the remarks, you can put potential for, you know, and then you can state what the city is looking to have in there. So that way, they already know what the potential is that either the city's looking for or for that particular property.
Okay. All right. Well, you bring up a great point, Jim. And, all right, just so I too have a rock solid understanding of this. I want a development there. I don't want a guy who buys it and then is gonna resell it or has sit on it. So as long as I feel, and if you can find the guy who wants to develop it and, you know, you collect your fee, that's great. But you're right, I don't want it just to sale. So we need to make sure that however this is set up, we don't find ourselves getting pinched by, oh man, some guy bought it, now he's sitting on it. Or he's gonna resell it and to a guy, and now we've lost control. I wanna make sure we have, can retain.
well, I think in the purchase contract, you can address, you know, they can't purchase it until they post bonds, you know, whatever cash deposits, bonds they need to put in, you know, they post it before closing so that when they do close, you know, they're gonna have significant dollars on the line if they don't develop it right away.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, perhaps I can add something here too. Ben and I have worked on some language that we would work with Brian on the listing, the MLS listing, because I think Alderman Capadona raised the issue last meeting, where if you do have a price on a house, as Alderman Petrakos mentioned, and you get a full bid or full offer on that, there are some restrictions in the law where you can't reject it, possibly. So what we want to do is have the MLS listing, and I'll just read some of the notes we made, shall indicate that any offer submitted to the city shall include the following: concept plan of what the buyer plans to build on the lot and renderings showing the exterior appearance of the new building. These would not be full plans, just a concept plan. Tell us what the building will look like. 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories, whatever you have in mind. Prospective uses of the building that shall include uses that incorporate retail opportunities that are consistent with other uses in downtown Lockport. So you're not having a use that is totally out of character with the downtown area, or opportunities where sales tax will never occur there. Those are the kind of things we want to know. Proof of eligibility for financing the construction project. We want to find out whether the offeror has the financial ability to follow through. Start date for construction and final completion date for construction of the project and completion of the interior. so we don't end up with a shell and nothing on the inside. And then finish it off by saying the city will not consider any offer that excludes the required information, and that the offer, even if a full asking price offer, shall not be deemed a bona fide offer for which the city would incur, that the city would have to accept. The city reserves the right to reject any offer that does not include a redevelopment plan that is approved by the city council. And then we go on to talk about the TIF incentives. So I think we will work with Brian to make sure we don't end up having to back into a contract we don't want. It'll be a contract that you'll be able to approve, much like the Embers structure, where that was purchased for $10. So there really wasn't an asking price issue there. It was, what are you going to do with the building? How quickly are you going to do it? And do you have the financial ability to put it together? So that's our goal. Brian, I don't think I misspoke there.
No, and I would just add, again, put the stipulation in, you have to have final approval from the city and bonds posted. And there's your security that they're gonna close on it, they're going to build on it right away.
Tom, maybe you can answer this. So a lot of other municipalities do a development RFP, right? Issue it to developers and say, come back, give us your best, what you think you can do on this property, what you need to buy it for, and so forth, and then municipalities can pick from there. Why is this method different, better?
Actually, I think it's the same method I've followed in the last 30 years or so, especially with downtown redevelopment, which is very difficult because you don't want your buildings to be occupied or bought by speculators who will sit and hold and wait for the good days to come. You want people willing to take some chances now. And we will do a development agreement with whoever decides to buy this property. It'll be very specific, it'll have deadlines, it'll have financing contingencies, environmental issues, it'll address everything that a standard commercial real estate contract needs to address. Same thing that we did with the Vols building, and it resulted in having a $1.5 million investment in downtown Lockport without TIF incentives, which is fairly rare these days in older downtown. So it was really an agreement that worked very well. And I think you'll see the same pattern being followed with this project.
And to date, it's only been on our website, right, property?
I think it sounds great.
Okay. Any other questions?
May I ask how the price is going to be arrived at? Or how are you going to come up with the price? Are you,
Well, I've been working with Ben.
Does?
I guess,
Certainly, like I said, price is negotiable. I mean, would we like to get 15,000 to cover the cost of a commission? Sure. But again, depending on what the proposal is and what they're going to build,
It seems like it's a little wishy-washy, guys. I think you need
Which
to
part is
come-
wishy-washy?
Well, you know what it is? It's like if I have a guy who's going to come in and put a $3 million building in, I'm not going to say, then,
Well, any price you put on something is always negotiable. I
Yeah.
guess you have to start at a price so that maybe you might get close to what you're looking for.
okay.
Well, I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a building.
Yeah, well, it's going to
That's what
take
I'm
a
looking for.
significant
I'm
investment.
not looking for another 25 years of looking at a hole.
Yeah.
And so I think that the proposal that the staff has come up with is a very good proposal. I'll be happy if we get anybody interested in purchasing this product and putting up a $2 million building. That's what I'm
how about
interested in.
this? How about if, like I said, on the commercial exchange, I won't put any number on it. I can get it out there, people will call me. I'll have a marketing brochure that I'll have staff approve, and we'll put that out there. We'll get the signs going right away. And as far as the MLS goes, you paid 80 for it, my fee's 15. Why don't we put it out there at 95 to start? I'll put language in there that will be approved by staff and talk about incentives and the flexibility of purchase price, but at least there's a number on there. And then we also have to have those stipulations of a contract in there, or a draft of a contract that they have to adhere to.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that? An okay
Reasonable.
starting spot?
Yeah.
I imagine anyone who's going to come in and do this is going to come in and say, look, I'll give you $5,000 for it or something. They're not going to, okay. All right, man, I'm fine. All right, so we good? Can we have a roll call?
Yes. Petracos?
Yes.
Capadona,
Yes.
Lowgley,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Deskin,
Yes.
Vandermeer,
Yes.
Moreta.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
8 yeas, motion carried.
All right.
Thanks for hanging in there, Brian. No problem. Good night.
Thanks, yeah, sorry. All right.
And then I apologize for the confusion on the listing. I think I just having a hard time where I don't want to legislate how he needs to do his job. He's the broker, he's the lister, he's going to try to get this sold and let him dictate price.
15 grand.
But anyway, thank you. Next item on your agenda, Mayor, if I may, CA2, it's the acceptance of the guard shack. And we did include in your packet some photos at Jim Petrakos' request. This would be, as you know, I mean, Chevron and the city of Lockport, we have an annexation agreement and a redevelopment agreement for the Star Business Park. Chevron has made many improvements to that facility and area, and we've had them come in for several presentations over the last couple of years in regards to where they are with industrial and commercial users. Chevron has confirmed that they want to move the historic guard shack from its current location on the Chevron property to the Heritage Village for use by the city and the Historical Society as a potential visitor center and memorial to the Chevron and the workers, to Texaco, actually. And Chevron is going to pay the expense to move the building across the bridge. We can't guarantee that this building of this age and nature is going to maintain its integrity in the move, and so the city is asking that we don't accept any liability or accept the property until it reaches the foundation over at the Heritage Village. I think it's a good plan. They've agreed to do that. We will have no liability in the move. If it crumbles and breaks, it's their responsibility to clean it up, and it's their property. So it's nice to see the guard shack get put back and be a great part of the attraction there at Heritage Village. We're looking at a motion to pass a resolution approving the acceptance of the bill of sale, which is also included in your packet, which does exclaim that it doesn't become active until it hits our foundation, I believe.
I'll make the
Alright.
motion.
That's Chris, seconded by Jason. Yes, all in favor on this?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, resolution passes.
And I know that Alice and Steve, I know that they're looking for a quick turnaround on these signed documents in the next day or two if we can.
Pen is ready. All right, Lisa, what do you got?
Yes, last council meeting, we talked about the commuter lot. Currently, right now, only cash is accepted for people to pay the fee to park there. Total Parking Solutions, which is a company that operates our equipment out there, has offered another solution, which is a smartphone app for the parkers there to go ahead and pay online. So they can pay from the train, they can pay from their car, but they can pay with a credit card. So this is the contract that's in front of you.
Okay.
Is this something that, do we need a motion?
I'll just make a motion to pass.
Second.
All right, Jason, seconded by Bob. Yeah, please, go ahead, Brian.
Again, I should have asked you prior to the meeting, but is this something that's compatible with other, maybe commuting lots that the app is? Is that something that?
Yes, so
Okay.
Lamont already has this, New Lenox, Orland Park. There's 40 other already implemented just in
Okay,
Illinois.
great.
So they're doing this
Yeah,
all
I
over.
kind of would want to be on board with the other ones, that's all I'm asking.
So they just select what zone they're at. So if they park in New Lenox tomorrow, they would load the money on there, and they could park
Awesome,
in
thanks.
a number of
Good.
different communities.
Good, thanks.
Okay, so can I have a roll, or, no, do we need that? Can I have, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays out there? Okay, passes, Alice. All right, what do you got, Tom?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is a follow-up to our conversation regarding the prevailing wage ordinance. I did provide you with a memo after the last meeting addressing the status of the state statute and the Illinois Department of Labor's interpretation of it. It was put on the agenda because the city staff received an email or a letter from the Department of Labor asking the municipality, or all municipalities, to pass the ordinance. As I mentioned in my memo, if you don't pass the ordinance, then we default to the wages that were ascertained by the Department of Labor. If we wanted to do different wages, we would have to do a wage study under the state statute. And I think I mentioned at the last meeting, that's a very costly endeavor, and it's something that most municipalities do not take on. My recommendation is to be cooperative with the state, since we have the state asking us to pass the ordinance, we could take action on it tonight and pass it, and then we can submit it. If you choose not to take any action, at that point, we basically default to the wages that have already been ascertained by the state.
All right, so can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Is that
Jim?
Big Jim down there, Darren?
Okay, just so I'm clear. So the motion that we just made was to approve us defining the wages, correct?
That's correct. We are passing a local ordinance that adopts the wages that were determined by the Department of Labor to be appropriate for all of Will County.
What was that again?
Yeah, we are passing an ordinance that approves the wages for workers on public works projects in Will County. This is not just a City of Lockport determination, it's countywide.
So if we vote yes, and we agree to accept Will County, do we have to then go ahead and publish these wages at our expense?
The statute provides that the municipality is required to publish in a newspaper. My recommendation to the city staff has been not to publish it. You'll see, on occasion, you'll see some communities publishing it, but most municipalities do not.
So-
And again, I'm not telling you that we should violate state law, but because of that default provision in the state statute, it basically says if you don't do anything, you're still subject to the wages as ascertained by the Department of
So a
Labor.
no vote accomplishes the same thing as a yes vote, but it doesn't cost us any money.
It will not,
It doesn't cost us any money to publish anything.
either way, you're not mandating the publication of the ordinance. The staff would not follow through with a publication on it. If we hear from the Department of Labor that we're required to publish, we'll take issue with that, we'll bring it back to you, but they would have to pursue many municipalities throughout Illinois.
So-
Yeah, all of our public works contracts contain a prevailing wage provision for many, many years.
So if we were to vote no, that means we're still in compliance, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We would not recommend being out of compliance with the prevailing wage statute as far as the actual payment of wages to workers for the companies that we hire, whether it's Faro, D Construction, Austin Tyler. All of our contracts will always have a prevailing wage provision unless the state changes the law. And as many of you have probably followed, the governor's recommending a change in this law, but he's not getting much traction with Speaker Madigan and the Senate.
All right. I mean, forgive me, because I wasn't here last time when this was probably discussed more in detail, but what's the point in even, what are we accomplishing here?
Actually, I think that's why many municipalities take no action. We know that we don't have a choice, that all of our contracts must contain a prevailing wage clause, which they do, and if we take no action, we're still at the same place we are if we were to pass the ordinance. I think what Alderman Duskin is raising is the cost of publishing it in a newspaper. This goes back to a 1941 statute back in the day when municipalities communicated new ordinances through the publication in a local newspaper. Those days have changed.
So basically, if we vote yes, we have to set the prevailing wage, which may be identical to what Will County is, correct?
No.
You
If
are
we
right.
say yes, we are acknowledging that we are accepting Will County's prevailing wage that is standard for throughout Will County. And every public project, as an architect, we publish those with every spec that goes out, every project that goes out, for every county that project is in. And I was told that our engineering does the same thing. So we are publishing out there with every project. This is just acknowledging that, yes, we're following prevailing wages, it's just a formality.
But also, if we were to vote no, it falls back on the state law, which accomplishes the exact same thing.
Correct. But somebody may come knock on your door.
Somebody what?
Come knock on your door, I'm saying. The state's asking us to acknowledge the prevailing wage.
It's more of a response from the staff that we received a letter from the state wanting to know if we've been in compliance. We've asked you to be in compliance. We already operate in
It's a formality, I'm fine with this. This is standard.
There are towns that all vote no as a symbolic gesture, but it really doesn't mean anything because you still follow the wage ordinance.
And I tried to say, well, what if we don't agree with the wage last time? Like, we would have to undertake our own wage study, which isn't worth so the only real way to make a change, because I didn't like this when I saw it, I called Ben right away. I think it's ridiculous, but the only way that I understand to make a real change, it's not worth standing up and doing. It's frankly a waste of taxpayers' money to try to make it, in my opinion, to make it, to try to make
It is.
change to this.
Yep.
All right, so,
I'll defer to people who understand what we were talking about.
We deal with this at every time, it's just a formality.
It's a formality, yeah.
all right, so we'll do a roll call. Jim, you want to start?
Yes.
Thank you. Capadona?
Yes.
The mayor calls
Delogley?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Loretta?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
I thought we were gonna get one no.
Carried.
Okay. All right, next is Pam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. This item is the Municipal Code Text Amendment for Chapter 134, Regulated Substances, in particular the section regulating comprehensive regulation of tobacco products. As you know, we've been discussing this for several months. Before you this evening is the ordinance number 16-010. We discussed this at both the June 15th and July 6th Committee of the Whole meetings. The attached ordinance does reflect the changes that were discussed and directed by council, which includes, in lieu of doing a building code amendment to incorporate some sort of air cleaning system, we discussed and referenced the system called a Smoke Master air cleaning system or something similar, so at least we have some specifications, and if someone can prove their system works equally as well, that would be acceptable. In addition, the direction was to extend the timeline for existing business compliance to 18 months, which has been incorporated into this ordinance. So with that being said, and also I just want to remind everyone that the moratorium extension is in place until August 1st. So even if this passes, we're still in a moratorium period until that time period. So with that being said now, I'm seeking a motion to pass ordinance number 16-010, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 134, Regulated Substances. The specific sections have been identified of the city's municipal code pertaining to regulated substances, which is the comprehensive regulation of tobacco products, which would now include alternative nicotine and vapor products as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, Chris and Jim. Let's do a roll call.
Can I have a discussion?
Oh, yeah, I'm
You
sorry.
mind?
Go ahead, Jim.
I just want to say a thought. As an alderman, I'm usually very quiet. People actually wondering why I'm so quiet. Basically, it's because I listen. If things are going the way I like, I don't think I need to speak, or I don't need to say the same thoughts that everybody else is saying. But my role is to read the package, be prepared, be prepared for tonight. If I have questions, we have a great staff I can ask questions to, or I can do my own research. It's my job to learn on every topic. Also to listen to concerns from other people, citizens of our town, other aldermen, everybody's thoughts. And eventually I have to come up with an educated vote. But not on every topic, I'm not an expert. And vaping is another one of these where I am not an expert. So when I'm not an expert, I kind of have to rely more on my staff. And we have a great staff, Ben, Lisa, Pam, everybody, Tom. So let's get to this ordinance. Like I said, I'm not an expert, and I kind of relied more on staff. I guess I do have a couple friends who are in this industry, so I'm a little bit more concerned about it, I guess. But our staff came back to us and said, which they did a great job. I mean, all these ordinances, most of the changes I'm very happy with, these obvious ones, not close to a school, the very various things. But when we got to the idea of the ventilation system, staff came back and said, we really don't want to go there. We recommend, I'm not going to set an example, or we're not going to tell people what they have to do, because they did their research and felt like it wasn't necessary. But our council said, no, no, no. I don't like the look of smoke / vape, whatever you want to call it, in these buildings. And Darren is a great guy. He's passionate about everything, and this is where I probably should have spoke last week or 2 weeks ago. Darren got into smell. No, Darren, it wasn't about smell. It's about the seeing of the smoke in these buildings and the perceived image that this means. And I like how earlier in our ordinance, I'll read it, it says, potential health risks and or benefits associated with electronic smoking devices, including liquid nicotine and other toxins, are subject to further study. Which basically means we're saying, we don't know if it's good or bad for us. We haven't done the official study. So, but now we're going against what we are saying and saying, oh, but I don't like all this smoke in there, all this vapor in there. So I'm telling these people they have to put a filtration or ventilation system in it. I stopped at the 3 Lockport establishments, and I went into them. I had one of them actually said, let's try to get this thing filled with vape, and they filled it up, and in a matter of 30 seconds, the vape was gone. I also went to every neighbor and said, do you complain about the next door neighbor? One establishment complained, and that was more because of a concern that at the top of the roof, they are not sealed properly. There's not, so there is a gap there, so smoke, yes, or vape or whatever, can get into the other room. But they're in the process of getting that closed up. But at that same time, that establishment is playing music so loud that we're having a hard time even having a conversation in the vaping place. So what are we enforcing? Oh, we don't want vape to go in there, but it's okay for them to play their music real loud, and they have to coincide with each other. But that's what they have to do. So I just think we are setting a fine line, or we're getting really picky on these, what we think is perceived image. And Alderman Petracos is right. Yes, we can regulate things. Do we want a strip club to come in here? No, they can go, like you said, go build in Franklin Park. Do we want, yes, we do have control of what we want to bring in. But do we have the right to say what's wrong and right about what we perceive is wrong? And one of the owners said, I am under the stereotype all the time. I am a perceived head shop. People think this is illegal. So we are almost treating these people the same way they are. Which also leads me to a letter to the editor, fact in the Herald News back in March 17th. And I'm just going to read a little bit of it. It says, to the editor, once again, our Lockport City Council has chosen to add a business to Lockport that is neither wanted or needed. It was announced that another gas station will be built next to the Aldi's food store on Farrell Road. Is this what the citizens of our town really need? Do we also need warehouses built along Interstate 355? What is really needed are quality sit-down types of restaurants such as Texas Roadhouse, Applebee's, Chili's, or other place a family can gather to enjoy a good meal at an affordable price. And he goes on, and it was written by M. Lovell, hope I said your name right, here from Lockport. If you would follow these council meetings, M. Lovell, I'm sure you do, you know we're for growth. We're about getting new places. Yes, we all want new restaurants in here. We all want nice establishments in here. But on this one, I applaud the owners of these vapor shops who probably did more research than we have, and they know if their establishment's going to make it or not. And they actually, they have more concerns. They have the FDA that they don't even know if they'll be around in 2 years. But I'm just saying, what's next? When somebody goes to 929 South State and wants to put up a brewery, are we going to say, oh, we don't want a brewery downtown Lockport. That's against our image. Or, they sell alcohol in there. Or if a distillery, or a Harley-Davidson owner wants to put now we're like making decisions based on what we perceive is negative. So I just thought, I personally am going to vote no against this. I know, following what everybody else has been saying, it's going to pass. But I'm only voting no because I think we need to pay more attention on what we pick and choose as what we think are good or bad for the people. And I don't think developers are going to drive by a vape shop and say, wow, there's vape in a vape shop. I am not coming to Lockport. So back when we built a Walmart, a lot of people said, I don't want to be a Walmart town. I don't want to be this town. I don't even want to be that town. And so I just think you need to be careful going forward, and we need to just evaluate and say, do we really know enough about it to like just basically say, this has to be done or this does not. So I just wanted to say my opinion. Sorry about that.
All right, thanks, JR. You know, for me, it's kind of comes down to this. There's some visuals, but in the end, I don't want to vape. And when I walk by the vape shop, and we do with my family all the time on our walk, and if the door's open and we all breathe it in as we do, and we're like, oh, I don't want to vape. It's different than smelling pizza. When I walk by Mangia's, I don't have to eat a pizza. But when I breathe vape, by definition, I'm vaping. And it's happened a number of times when we've walked by there. So for me, that's what it's about. It's about nobody should have to vape if they don't want to. And if you're breathing it, you're vaping. So that's where I've come. That's kind of been my opinion on it. So I appreciate your thoughts, JR. I just disagree a little bit, but it's not about, I mean, we're not kicking vape shops out. We're just trying to keep it like, look, if you want to vape, sell your product, that's great, go vape at home. But I don't want to put it in the public, where people who don't want to have to vape are breathing it in. I'm not saying it's unhealthy, I'm just saying I don't want to vape, so. All right, any other questions, concerns, comments? All right, why don't we do a roll call?
Petracos?
Yes.
Capadona?
Yes.
Delogui?
No.
Smith?
Yes.
Deskin?
No.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Coretta?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
6 yeas, 2 nays. Motion carried.
Okay. Tom, you're next?
Actually, are you talking about Public Works 1? We don't, I'll
I
take
think we're on
that.
PW1.
Yeah, the landscape contract. Joe couldn't be with us tonight, so I'll handle that. Tom did do a nice update memo for us that I can kind of highlight for you. I think we had a little bit of a discussion in regards to the city taking over a landscape contract at the Lincoln Landing. We'll be seeking a motion to pass Resolution 16053A to authorize the administrator and staff to enter into a contract with Berry Landscape for the annual maintenance for the rest of this year. One of the big questions was, do we own this property? And I think we've resignedly answered that. Tom put together a nice memo with quite a few attachments. By even all attorney standards, there was a lot of attachments, Tom.
Pictures, I like it.
A lot of pictures. And I think, obviously it showed that the 320-foot by 100-foot parcel being owned by the city back in 2011. There's a second parcel there. And the only question I don't think I could answer, and I forgot to try to grab Tom before the meeting, so I'll put him on the spot here, was one of the parcels was in regards to the vacation. There was a vacated parcel in line with the 8th Street right-of-way. And one of the questions was, what does that really mean? I mean, the vacated, who owns that now, and what is it associated with?
The vacation goes back to the early 1900s, 1905, I believe. And what was intended back then, the state statute provided when you vacate a street, half goes to the property owner on that side, and the other half of the vacated street goes to the property owner on the other side. And in this particular case, the state happened to own the parcel to the south of 8th Street. So the south half of 8th Street went to the state. Later on, after IDNR was created, IDNR took responsibility for maintaining and managing state-owned properties in areas like the I&M Canal. So that's how IDNR got involved with this. Later on, the Will County Historical Society obtained what's called a license agreement, similar to a lease or permission to use the property, and that license agreement allowed the property to be incorporated into a park setting or an educational facility open to the public. That license was assigned to the city a few years ago. So the city has control over the entire stretch of Lincoln Landing, owning about 90% of it, and then having the remaining 40-foot by 100-foot parcel under a license agreement with the state of Illinois. So that's how we ended up getting ownership and control of most of all of the property.
So the other questions to that is, so the north part that's vacated, that goes to public landing.
Yes.
All the alterations, I think that brought up last time, all the stone, the landscaping, all that stuff, that is whose? Is that ours now?
Yeah, it would be my opinion, and again, this is something we need to work out with the foundation, because the foundation paid for all of the improvements, all of the new stone. The original stone was paid for by the foundation. There was a problem with the stone, I think we talked about that, and it was all replaced in the last couple of months, and that was done through settlement with the insurance company. So the city has not invested in the new improvements there. But because those improvements are fixed to the ground, it's my opinion that those actually belong to the city. What we need to do with the foundation is have a follow-up conversation like we've had with Chevron regarding the guard shack, and you took action on a bill of sale or a quitclaim deed tonight authorizing the formal transfer of what was up in the air at one point but becomes part of something affixed to the ground. We need to have that same process with the foundation, to have the foundation transfer any interest it has in what it purchased to the city so we have full ownership. There are other issues that we've all worked through on maintenance, and I think that's why you're seeing this contract in front of you. There will be a snow removal conversation that'll happen in the next couple of months before the snow flies. But those are the things that are getting worked out between the city staff and the foundation. And as you saw from the paperwork, there were 5 or 6 other agencies involved with the planning of this. I think they've stepped to the side now, Lewis University, the grade school, some of the other agencies. So it really is a conversation between the city and the foundation.
And that's exactly right. There's so many hands in this that if we can clean it up, and if we're gonna, nobody probably knew about that was our property, or some people probably did, and now that we're cutting the grass, we're like, oh, that's our property, give it to our property. And so if the stones now on that IDNR property become IDNRs officially, I think we should clean up that property down the road, or I don't know how troublesome that is, but, so we take full control of that, and that's something that we have to do. That's fine, it's our property, and we take that. I know I sent an email, I think, over the weekend, cars were driving on the public landing. I know part of it is meant to be driven on, but now that it's ours, we should probably limit where the cars are, because I think there's only one strip that the cars can drive on safely. And if, I don't want that, I mean, these guys were backing up and so forth, so they could have hit stones, they could have done it, we've been right back in square one, replacing all that stone. So if
We do insure the property. We do have an insurance policy for it. Snow removal has been handled by the Park District and should continue on. I believe we'll be picking up a sprinkler contract at some point. But other than that, I think that's about it.
Okay. No other questions, then, I don't know if did I already make a motion on this? I don't think so. Can we make a motion?
Seeking a motion
So
to
moved.
approve.
Second.
Jim, Darren, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? All right, Pam, get the last 2 here?
Yes. The last one is the planning and zoning case, which is the text amendment to the zoning ordinance, to the definition sections and permitted use tables for all commercial districts. This is including revising the definition for writing definitions and including definitions that we didn't have. These items were presented at both the June 15th and July 6th Committee of the Whole meeting. On the last Committee of the Whole meeting, staff just clarified that in the definition, the 30% should have been revised to 80% with respect to what it meant by being primarily engaged. The council concurred. Therefore, the ordinance number 16-009 does reflect these changes and is now being presented for final action.
All right. So looking for a motion to pass?
So moved.
Second.
Jim and Chris? We need to do a roll call. Does anybody want a roll call on this?
Yes, do roll call.
Roll call, please.
Required to take.
Okay.
Petracos?
Yes.
Capadona?
Yes.
Delloglio?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Deskin?
No.
Vandermeer?
Yes.
Corretto?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
7 yeas, 1 nay. Motion carried.
All right, looks like everything. Any other comments? All good to go?
Good
All
job.
right, then looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Man, Bob and Joanne, I think you got to cover that. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
You got a minute?